Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Albrecht? Mr. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Hall? Mrs. Roop?
Here.
Mr. Teray?
Here.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Here.
And Mrs. Galbraith is here.
Stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball.
Dr. Cunningham, would you read the mission statement, please?
Maybe I can read the small print with these cheaters.
Our mission statement: to ensure that every child is challenged to reach his or her full potential academically, socially, and emotionally as they grow and develop into thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of society.
Thank you. I have one public comment. Terry, do you have any others? Okay. Ms. Christy Dixon from Crete regarding the wrestling team and parents that would like to have Coach Burchett reinstated as the head coach of the wrestling program. Can you step forward, please? And if anybody else wants to stand to be recognized, that's fine too. The microphone right here.
Anyone can come up there if you so choose.
Yes, you guys can come on up.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have enough room for everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you can see, we're here tonight in order to address the reinstatement of Coach, we call him Coach B, Coach David Burchett, in the position of head wrestling coach. And most of these students that you see here, these students that you see here on the wrestling team, all of the parents couldn't be here tonight, but I just want to state first before I begin that a lot of the parents and wrestlers have sent in information, all different types of communications, and I've taken those communications, summarized them in order to just try to voice the opinion of the team. It goes as follows. Dear board members, staff, and principal of Crete, Monee High School, recently it's come to our attention that it's been determined that Coach Burchett will no longer be in the position of head wrestling coach for the 2017-2018 school year. We're asking for that decision to be reconsidered. First, let me state that we believe retaining the head coach from last year will give us the stability and consistency as a team. We cannot gain any ground if we continue to change this coaching staff year after year. The implementation of a new head coach will only cause the team to have to start over again, having to build a relationship of trust, respect, and confidence. Also, starting the year over with a new wrestling coach can have a negative impact on all the players, but the varsity players stand to lose more ground and recruitment and scholarship opportunities than any other wrestler. In comparison, if they start the season with a coach that they already have a positive relationship with, they can focus their energies on athletic development and their wrestling skills. Coach B is very valuable to us as a head coach. His vision for our wrestlers to be able to perform and compete on a higher scale has energized them to reach beyond their boundaries, both athletically and academically. Accomplishments that some students have never seen before. His mentoring ability has allowed him to gain the respect of many other wrestling team members, as well as the parents. Finally, his ability to network and interact with other coaches and teams in the region and community has allowed us the ability to network, interact, and cross-train, which can only lead to a stronger team, both mentally and physically. Besides requesting that the hiring department reconsider reinstating Coach Burchett as head coach, we would like to request that the decision be made expeditiously. Because the coaching decision has not been finalized yet, our wrestlers are not properly conditioning and practicing right now for the upcoming season. Their competitors are conditioning right now, and they are gaining an advantage over our wrestlers. Furthermore, our wrestlers need to be able to work on skill development and team building activities. All these steps are what it takes to put our wrestlers in the position to have a winning wrestling season this year. We appreciate your assistance in this matter. We are aware that this debate among students, staff, and coaches is a sensitive subject and it's very emotional for our students. It's our goal to quickly resolve this issue so that we can all channel our energy and resources into helping our students be academically successful, making the team successful, and building a wrestling program that Crete Monee High School can be proud of again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixon.
I would just, I know we typically do not make a comment, and I'm not gonna be in any way, shape, or form confrontational, but I really appreciate you, Mrs. Dixon, for coming up and each and every one of you. What we have in front of us is someone, I never met the coach. To this day, I can't tell you what he looked like. But when I see someone that has an impact in a positive way, like this coach has had, it behooves us as a board to continue that. So if there's administrative issues that this coach has dealt with, I think we can get through that. But as having an impact on these kids, we need to make it happen. I'm getting emotional about it some way. Because a couple years ago, there was another athletic director that students came up here for to ensure that his job is retained. It was not, but I was one of the board members that voted because I saw that what he had in a positive way on our kids. We read the mission statement. It was all about our kids. Let's let the board take our hands off of this in a negative way and make this happen.
I have a couple of questions. And I'm going to put in a comment. If other board member can, so can I.
Please make sure that we understand we cannot discuss this in open session.
All right. All I'm going to ask about is, was my understanding that the coach was not retained. Is that a correct statement, that this coach was not retained?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good news report. Our Crete Monee High School football team field goal kicker Grace Miller. Is Natalie? Bear with us 1 second.
You want us, Natalie, is this something we should be down in the audience to see?
Sure.
Not allowed to trip or fall. Well protected. Direct order
I don't know if I need this, but I'll go ahead and use it anyways. First and foremost, thank you very much, the Board of Education, for having us here and honoring Grace, and as well as the entire football team, but obviously particularly for Grace's accomplishments. Grace, we didn't have a kicker, and I brought Coach Seifert on this past year to be our kicking coach here at Crete Monee High School, and Grace came out and was able to kick field goals and was able to do it better than any of the young men on the team. To our knowledge, she's the only female kicker we've ever had in the program. She's now currently second in points on our team. She's the first female kicker to score points at Ross-Ade Stadium, which is where Purdue University plays. They have not played a high school game there since 1952. This past Friday, we played Friday, right? We believe that she set a state record for most points by a field goal kicker, female field goal kicker in the state of Illinois. It's currently being fact-checked right now. Done an outstanding job for us, and we're very, very pleased and happy and proud to have her on team. And, obviously the best part about it is that, and I have significant experience coaching women in football. And right away if somebody has the eye of the tiger, and Grace definitely has the eye of the tiger every time she comes out there. So she's a pleasure to have on the team. We're very excited to have her. Oh, fantastic.
We want to recognize the family. Keep up the good work.
So stop shaking, bro.
I am.
Thank you, and congratulations again, Grace. Do we have any board member comments?
Yes. I want to be the first to officially say congratulations, Grace. I had the honor of being at the Lincoln Way East game when you made your first kick. I was in the section with your mother. It was very loud. My hearing is just now coming back, but it was so exciting. And it's still, every game, it's still just as exciting. So I'm just so proud of you, not only athletically, but academically, and just can't wait to see what you do.
Okay, I'd like to go next. This is tough. I've known Grace since she was very, very young. How old were you when you moved in across the street? So I've watched Grace grow up to the young lady she is today. I couldn't be more proud of you. When I saw your score up there, I was like, oh, that's Gracie. And then I realized I can't call you Gracie anymore. So to you and the entire team, congratulations. To our coaching staff for thinking of this and implementing it, we thank you. I'm very proud of all of you, but Grace, you know, I'll stop calling you Gracie. Congratulations.
Well, great. Well, Grace, I haven't known you that long. I've only known you for 3 minutes. Yes, she is. So congratulations. And not only can you kick a football, and believe it or not, one of the greatest football players that ever came across here in Crete, Monee, I think I seen him miss a 10-yard or 12-yard field goal. So you keep doing what you're doing, carrying not only kicking a football, but carrying a 4-point, I think it was 1.25, something like that, GPA. And what really impressed me more is the guys rallied around her. And continue that. I do not want to see her sacked, okay? Protect her, and she will continue to score. Good job, Grace.
Congratulations, Grace. Beautiful name, beautiful meaning to your name. So that lets me know you're going to go really far in places. Being the first female can be challenging, and I'm sure you had some challenges. And I just want to encourage you, this is just the opening of a door. Expect to be the first. If that is a part of what your life purpose is supposed to be, don't be afraid. Take it on, even when you leave high school. Don't be afraid to knock down some doors. And, you know, I have some experience with having to work around men a lot. So if you need some tips, I'm here for you. But congratulations. And I want to say also, this is beautiful. We normally get only a couple of people at the board meeting, but I always love to come in and see people at the board meeting, especially our students. Can we give them a round of applause? I found out the Thornton School District actually has a student board of education, and some school boards actually have a student representative on their boards of education. We need to make sure that we're valuing our student voice. To the wrestlers that came out, kudos to you guys for coming out and speaking out. We need to encourage our young people to speak up more and speak out more. We need to hear from our young people. I think if we hear more from them, we can make better choices in this school district. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you parents for bringing them out.
My turn. Yay. Super congratulations. What an achievement. I couldn't be more proud of you. Having a daughter that is probably older than your mom, it's just fantastic. God bless you and keep up the good work, and go Warriors.
First, I want to start by thanking Mr. Konecki for bringing Ms. Seifert on board to coach the kickers, and Ms. Seifert for helping Grace along. I really appreciate that, and I know that you've got the best interest of all of our students, and I know this was a big leap for both of you, so thank you for doing that. To the football team, thank you for welcoming Grace. I'm sure that probably was an unusual request for you. Probably many of you have never played with a girl before, so thank you for welcoming her. Grace. Just the other day, Miss Nash and I were discussing Night of Leadership, which is coming up, and we were discussing what it is to be a leader. And being a leader does not mean that you're an elected official or that you're a principal or that you are the boss at your job. You, Grace, are a leader. You are showing girls that anything that they want to do is accomplishable and that there are no limits. So for that, I thank you. Continue in that leadership role and continue that as you leave Crete Monee and go to college and then in your adult life. So thank you so much. We appreciate it and congratulations on everything. Thank you.
Grace, congratulations again. I was there also at that first extra point, and I've seen many, many more after it. Probably too many. Where's Coach? Maybe too many last weekend, but great job. And what I really appreciate even more than the great job that you're doing out there is the great job that you're doing in the classroom. You know, so many times we start talking about athletes, but it's important for us to have student athletes. And looking at your grade point average, there's no doubt the student is before the athlete, but the athlete is outstanding too. So congratulations, keep doing the great work, and go Warriors.
I would like to, I apologize, I would like to acknowledge and please ask to come to the front, the principal and the assistant principal of Crete Monee High School, Mrs. Marjorie Trish and Mrs. Lisa Haley Miller. Please come to the front. We want to keep spreading the little girl power. Oh, Jennifer, I'm sorry, I can't see. Jennifer, please. Just to come up and maybe say a few words.
Good evening to the board, parents and students, football players. Grace, it's a wonderful opportunity to stand here before you and to say how great it is to see Grace out there in the football team. More importantly, I've known Grace since she's been into middle school. She's always been a sweet girl. She's always been about academics, and she's easy to get along with, and the students like her. She'll go far in life. Keep up the good work, Grace.
Okay, so my students know my personality is a little crazy. The board doesn't know this. But anyway, now you're going to find out. So when I found out we had a girl kicker, I was like, what? Oh my gosh. I freaked out and was so excited to get to the game and be prepared to just see you excel. Girl power. And I am so impressed, girl, by that 4.125. I got all the numbers. Keep excelling and doing great things in life, and good luck on your journey.
And I copy all of that. Congratulations, great job. You're definitely a role model for many students, and I'm really looking forward to getting my new Warrior gear so I can be at the next game and see you break more records. So thank you very much for doing such an outstanding job academically and paving the way in our athletics here for us. So congratulations.
For clarity, which student groups do we have here tonight? Soccer, football, wrestling. Just want to make sure we acknowledge all of our groups. Any other ones?
Dr. Hall, we
Thank
also
you.
have, which I was going to talk about in my board updates, but we have students from our drama club here also that are working for us tonight and helping us out. And I
Awesome.
believe we have
Get in the room.
Sean and, who is up, Brent? Wave. Thank you.
I think maybe we should have a student night. Invite our students out. Seriously.
All right, I need a motion to move closed session to after item number 13, please.
Moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Board updates. I have, well, one update I just said, kids from the drama club, thank you. And Dr. Hall, congratulations is in order. You have maintained your master board level status through the Illinois, oh, excuse me.
God bless you.
Oh, couple more coming. Sorry. So thank you for all you do with that and for keeping that status. We appreciate it. And I know you've been doing a lot with all of the new laws and the budget issues that the state has had. So thank you for keeping us informed and updated on that. Thank you. Any other board updates?
Yeah, well, I guess this would be more of an update. We had a closed session a couple weeks ago, and I just want the president to fine tune the closed session, how we go about conducting it, possibly have a policy on how we go about doing things in a closed session. Because in that closed session, there were some critical things that we needed to address, and in my opinion, we came close to not making a vital decision on the things that was at hand. So I think we need to have some dialogue on closed session, on how we do it, possibly a policy, so on and so forth. And I believe updating our policies, I think we still need to do some things with updating our policies. And Secretary, I think you may have some ownership into updating policies. So go review our board policy as it's written under roles and responsibilities. It says something about the secretaries should ensure that the policies are adequate or something to that effect. So give you an opportunity to look at it. All right.
We can discuss that at our board retreat. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of updates. For one, I want to make the board and our visitors aware of, you may not be aware of the passing of Senate Bill 1947, which is the Equitable School Funding Bill, which was passed a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of elements to that bill that will affect schools, that will affect students, parents, villages, businesses. It started out a bill strictly regarding equitable school funding. By the time it passed, there were a lot of other pieces added to that. I am actually hosting an informational session on that bill, and it's open to anyone that wants to attend. It will be on October 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at Colin Powell Middle School in Matson.
Did you say 6 p.m.?
6:30 p.m. at Colin Powell Middle School in Matson. And in attendance will be some of our legislators, some of the key people that were involved. I believe we'll have Mike Jacoby from IASBO there as well to talk about the numbers. We're going to have representatives from ISB as well, because it's important to inform our communities about laws that are affecting all of us. You can also go on Funding Illinois' website or Advance Illinois' website, and they have a lot of information there that you can look into and get the elements of this bill. But it's a groundbreaking bill. As Jennifer said, I was involved in a lot of the legwork for the past 2.5 years. I think the bulk of the legwork has been the last 4 years. But it's something that we all need to be knowledgeable of because it's going to really affect us, all of us sitting in the room. Also, I wanted to give some clarity regarding an event we had here at the high school on August 14th. It was a Facebook event. I understand there's some questions regarding the event, And I see that my colleague Nelson Albrecht is not here. I had understanding that he brought some questions about the event.
He will be here shortly.
Okay. Well, now I want to address it. It's an event that I, along with other legislators, brought to Crete Monee, actually as a result of a social media incident that we had at the end of last school year. As a result of that event, some of us were talking about how we can better educate our communities about social media and using it in the proper manner. So when we had the idea for the event, I came to our superintendent and said, you know, this is an opportunity to actually bring Facebook to our community. They're willing to fly all the way out here for free. And we also have individuals that would like to come in and do workshops just to educate our community. He was excited about it. He was on board about it. He said this is a great community event to bring to our community. We held the event, like I said, on August 14th. We had, I think, nearly 200 people that attended. We also gave away school supplies free. We also had food free. All of that donated. Pretty much everyone donated their times. I'd like to first acknowledge our superintendent, Dr. Cunningham, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Clark, as well as Ken Surma here. All of them participated in the event. I've already told them thank you personally because they took time out of their schedules to come out for our community. The question was, to my understanding, if I'm wrong, correct me, how does Dr. Hall get to do these events? I've been on this board for 8.5 years. My track record will prove and show I'm here for the
Dr. Hall,
community.
the question was not how do you get to do them? The question was
Okay.
what was the incremental cost for it?
Okay, I believe there were multiple questions, but that's what was told to me. So I'm just giving clarity. That is the way that the event came into play. So there were questions about how much it cost. Like I said, all on our end was donated, and there were other costs for security or whatever, which were brought in by the high school principal. So I just want to say this. Like I was saying before Mrs. Gasparo said what she said, what I do in this seat has always been to help our community, help our students, help this board, help the staff. And what I do is I do because I'm passionate about what I do. I'm an advocate for education. That's who God has made me to be. And I will always be that person. So being a board member and being a parent and being a community member, if I have an opportunity to help enlighten us, I have shared that and I will share it. There's been multiple opportunities. Ms. Hirsch will tell you, she got an email from me today about getting free books for teachers. They will tell you, that's what I do. It is because I care about my community, and that's it. So I will say I was a little offended that that was questioned because I said, why aren't other things questioned? Other community events that we do. So I asked the superintendent to look into the cost of other events, because if we're gonna start doing that, we need to do it for every event. Not something because my name is on it, for whatever reason. So I felt the need to address that. Like I said, when I do something, it comes from the heart. It takes away time out of my day, takes away time from my family, but they even understand this is who I am and this is what I do. So I just wanted to give clarity with that. And when I do things, Dr. Cunningham will tell you, most of the time, it's donated. I can get donations. I have gotten donations. I can get people to help because they know my passion that I have for education. So I just felt the need to clarify that, and thank you.
I agree, we need that information for everything, not just any specific events. So thank you, Dr. Hall.
And I would like all of the information I requested because we have not gotten it. Thank you.
I just one more follow-up, and I believe it may come under the administrative updates, but I'll wait and see until you, Dr. Cunningham, present your, whatever you need to present from your team. It might fall under this, what else, the other issue that I had with an update, but it may not fall on the board, so I'll wait.
Administrative updates. District affairs. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. What I have is an update, Freedom of Information Act update for the month of August. August 001, all emails sent by Dr. Nakia Hall beginning May 3rd, 2017 to current where she has used the title Board President, the original complaint on May request for review, the final report and emails between Dr. Cunningham, Dr. and Mr. Anderson regarding 2017 PAC 45938 that was received by the PAC regarding the alleged violations of the Open Meetings Act of the following board members: Michael Teray, Jennifer Gasparo, and Janine Galbraith, requested by Michael Teray for field August 23rd. August 002, a list in Microsoft Excel of all district employees with the following column headers: a non-social security number, unique identifier such as employee or payroll ID number, employee last name, first name, employment status, full-time or part-time, standard hours worked per week, hourly rate, annual salary, if applicable, job title code, if applicable, work location name, if applicable, work address, if applicable, work phone, if applicable, work email, status of position, permanent or temporary civil service, non-civil service, if applicable, union designation, if non-union, please indicate. Otherwise, indicate which bargaining unit and labor unit this position falls under. Standard union dues deducted per pay period, pay periods per year, copies of all currently active collective bargaining agreements between the district and any groups of its employees, including contracts that may have expired but are currently being negotiated, and complete payroll records and union deduction records. Requested by Matt Hoffman, SEIU Local 73. This was sent out today. It was placed on hold prior to today. It is out. August 003, the email address of all teachers and administrators in your district, requested by Nathan Milik, IRTA, for field August 30th, 2017. August 004, emails, applications, and the interview notes of Mr. Tobias, Mrs. Houston, and Mrs. Trish from May 2017 to August 30th, 2017, regarding the hiring for the head wrestling coach at Crete, Monee for the 2017-2018 school year. This particular portion was fulfilled September the 11th, 2017. There was an additional request made on this on September the 12th that extended the email search through September. August 005, in 2016-2017, did David Burchett submit to fingerprinting and background check? Please submit dates, times, and results. Requested by Michael Foy, fulfilled September 1st, 2017. And this completes my FOIA update for the month of August.
Thank you.
I have a question. Let's say we have a couple labor intense requests that it took a lot of hours, specifically under Mike Teray and this Matt Hoffman. We have the time complete. What would it take to put a monetary value in some capacity to each FOIA request?
I think we could probably work out a system. I don't know that it would be perfect. There is the number of hours that we're tracking on each one of them, and then there are different pay for the different people that are doing it. We could work out something. I don't know if it would be perfectly accurate, but it would give us a
Well, give us a kickstart because the board again, our roles and responsibilities to be financial and fiscal responsible. And we are looking at dimes and nickels and all of that. So 23 hours, 17 hours is a lot of time to have our staff conduct this work, even though we have to do it by law. That's great, but at least the public could see what comes with it as far as money is concerned.
Okay.
I thought we did, but
We had talked about it.
yeah, and I
We had-
never
And
came.
Dr.
That's how we
Clark,
got
if you
to-
can read the hours when, next month, when you read them.
Okay, I can do that. Normally, the hours are just for the board. I make just for you, but I can definitely do that. But I do have a clarifying question. Do you want manpower in terms of who all it is taking in their roles? And do you also want what we are able to charge by law for the request?
No, because the more I ask you for, the more it's going to take away from your duty. So, so give us something to work with. Just,
Okay.
give us a first run,
Okay.
so to speak, and then we can take it from there.
Okay.
So I'll be defeating the purpose. I said, yeah, okay, give me all of this, and no.
I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that these are required by law, these FOIAs, and, that's the law, and they be whatever it takes to fulfill them until it becomes extremely voluminous, they need to be fulfilled, so let's not lose track of that. Okay?
Not at all. Follow the law, and we should be okay. And one more question, and this may be an opportunity. Again, I'm not sure where it falls under the auspices of what group, but I believe you, Dr. Clark, regarding Student Affairs, at our last closed meeting, and again, I'm not revealing so much what was said, but what we have requested, because I think it's a sense of urgency need to be invoked here, and that is, we was going to gather some information and start disseminating that information to the student body in some capacity regarding what these hate groups were and what they are all about. Because it's been told, it's been said that a lot of the students don't understand what these groups represent. So we had asked that you guys get the ball rolling on that. So I don't know if you have any update, Dr. Cunningham. I'm not putting you on the spot, hopefully, Dr. Clark. But I think we just had a shooting a couple days ago at another high school. So I think the sense of urgency is out there.
We'll gather that, have a report ready to you of how it's going to go out and be disseminated, and then make sure that that happens.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a full-blown course, but I think some dialogue needs to happen quick towards student body in some way. You're the experts, you figure it out.
We shall, and I know they're doing a very good job of making sure that they meet with their students and talking about many different items, but we'll make sure that that.
So that's happening now?
We have, I think last week at the high school, not out there, that we had our meetings, our class meetings with all of them, with all of our students.
Was topics of discussion such as I just mentioned
I
regarding
don't know
racial
if there
tension
was a
and all?
topic of a discussion specific on hate groups, but I know that they go through expectations of students' behavior and every step.
I'm specifically talking about hate groups and the racial tension and what's going on, because we specifically had a student say that that student wasn't aware of what this particular phrase meant.
We will get you the information to you, how we're going to send it out, and ensure that it happens to our schools.
And we had specifically had people respond on how that student conveyed what he meant, or what he understood that phrase to mean, or what it did not mean to him. So in my opinion, there's a great sense of urgency that we get the information out in some capacity.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to address the first FOIA, since it does involve me. And again, I want to give clarity. I was actually contacted by a editor, I think, of a newspaper, local newspaper, regarding both of these FOIA requests. So I'm assuming that Mr. Teray contacted this person and gave them whatever was given to him in FOIA for whatever reason. So the first one is in regards to my email. So I want the public to understand this. On my email for this school district, I was the president for 4 years. On my phone, you have an opportunity, those of you who have an iPhone know that you can put in a description for your email. So apparently when you email other people, that description comes up. I would say back in maybe late July or early August, I was notified by a board member that when I sent my emails, it was still saying board president automatically in the from box. So upon that, I went through, deleted all of that, the references in my phone, because that's how I send my emails mostly. And apparently it kept happening. And to my understanding, this was also brought up by Mr. Albrecht in a meeting that I was not in attendance of. And I guess the concern was I, as the former president, still representing myself as the president. I sent an email to the entire board stating that this was not done on purpose. That's not something that I would do. And that it was brought to my attention, and I had taken the steps to delete that. I also said to Mrs. Gasparo in that email, this was not done intentionally. Just so you know, I've worked to get it removed. However, even after going through all of my phone, it's still popping up. So then it was suggested that I come to our IT people here in the district and ask them to go through my phone and delete this. I have a problem with that because I don't believe in asking people that are being paid by tax dollars to do anything on my phone personally. So what I did was talk to technicians that I know personally, and they gave me steps to go through. Even after all of that, it's still popping up, okay? So I want to give clarity. First of all, I think it's shameful that I get contacted by an editor asking me about this. I forwarded the editor the email I sent to the board, and I explained to the editor, even though I felt like I didn't have to explain myself, I explained it to my board, but let her know this was not done intentionally. This is something that I've tried to get rid of. So if anybody, when you get an email back from me, and if it says board president, it is not intentional, even though I feel like it's being made to be that way. Second part, regarding PAC 45938, for those of you who do not know, in January, Michael Ture, Jennifer Gasparo, and Janine Galbraith, our board members, were accused of having an illegal meeting back in November. I was president at the time. I got the letter from the Attorney General's office. The board members were asked by our lawyers, did this meeting happen? They said it did not. They signed affidavits saying it did not, correct? Okay. We sent all the information back to the Attorney General's office. Fast forward to about May. As the president, I sit down with incoming board members. I sit down with the superintendent to get them acclimated to the school board, answer any questions they may have. I had a meeting with Mr. Albrecht, and I had a meeting with Mrs. Roop. During that meeting with Mr. Albrecht, he stated that during his campaigning, he was accused of being a part of this illegal meeting. And he told me and the superintendent that it did occur, and he was present. So when I got that information, I felt that I needed to share this information with the Attorney General's office. It's a part of the investigation. The investigation was not over. I did that. I called them. I let them know what happened, and that was it. So then fast forward to now, my emails between Mr. Anderson, who's a former board member, and the superintendent are being FOIA'd by Mr. Ture for whatever reason, and then sent, if it shouldn't have been any sent because they didn't exist, but this information is also shared with this editor who called me about it and asked me about it. And so now, something that supposedly didn't happen, I don't know. I wasn't there. All I know is Nelson said he was there. It's something that I'm being questioned about for whatever reason. And I'm telling you all as the public, that's the clarity on this. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you.
I can, let me further clarify this because I'm one of the so-called people that met at this illegal meeting. This illegal meeting you're talking about is every time we go to a Illinois State Association conference or the National Conference of School Board Members, legal teams, architectural teams, various other vendors hold luncheons for people. They invite everybody to these luncheons and you can come to the luncheon. This particular thing that they're talking about, Mrs. Gasparo, myself, and Janine attended this, and Nelson Albrecht was also in attendance at this luncheon. There were approximately 300 people there. The place was full. It was simply a hi, meet and greet, and that was it. You know, I'm from school district, blah, blah, blah. You're from school district, blah, blah, blah. This goes on all the time. I think Dr. Hall can probably tell you that that's true, that these are sponsored. Our attorneys sponsor them, actually, where all of us meet together and have stakes, and the school board is treated. It has to be under X amount of dollars, so it's not considered illegal. But this goes, our architectural firm does the same thing with drinks and dinner, etc. So this is what this whole thing was about, and it was all nonsense because we've all attended these. I've sat in places with all of our board members, our previous board members, many of their spouses, and we all attended these kind of things together. So we don't talk about board business. We simply chit chat and have dinner. That's what this whole thing was about, and the whole thing was blown out of proportion. So you know, if they're going to allow meetings with several different boards and different board members, and these meet and greets are going to be allowed, then so be it. You know, if they want it, the state of Illinois wants to say, stop all these, it doesn't bother me. I can go have a hamburger. Doesn't affect me whatsoever. But this is how business is run. So I want you guys to know that and understand it. This is what goes on at these conferences. If any of my other board members would like to add anything, please feel free to do so.
I just want to clarify that Dr. Hall and I did converse privately regarding her emails and the use of board president, and we had a nice conversation about it, and I told her that I was not offended, and we both agreed that she knew that she was no longer the president and that she meant no ill will, and I appreciate that. And like I said, if I have a problem, I will come to you personally. So thank you for talking that out with me off the record. Thank you.
Oh, you think I can use my name as vice president anymore?
The problem with the emails is not the internal emails. It's going out to the public, and it confuses the public. And it's a misrepresentation of who is the president of the school board. We have one president, Mrs. Gasparo. That's it. You know, in this day and age with all the technology out there, I find it astonishing that a signature head cannot be changed.
It's not a signature. It's not
whatever
the
it is,
signature.
it can't be changed. I just find that astonishing in this day and age. So, you know, that's all I'll say about it. My 8-year-old granddaughter and my 10-year-old, they're doing all kinds of stuff with these phones and iPads. You know.
Okay, I think we need to get back to the agenda. Thank you, everybody.
Before you move on, Ms. Gasper, I just need clarity. So, Mr. Teray, as far as this luncheon or whatever, where a lawyer was present, you're saying that the lawyer was present and you had these conversation, just general.
I'm saying that there was a firm of lawyers present. A firm sponsored this luncheon, just like our firm does. That's what I'm saying. There were lawyers walking around the place, all over the place.
Okay, was this one of the
From-
ones that
from
we
many
received the
different-
invite for the school district?
No. There were
Okay.
many lawyers walking around from all over the place. And it was simply a hi, how are you, and that's it.
A
There was
luncheon.
no business discussed.
Thank you.
And I told them and you forgot to mention that
Mr. Terry,
The
we need to
case
get
was
back to the
closed.
agenda. Yes, the case is closed.
case is closed and it was found with nothing.
We've already brought that up before in
Okay.
board updates at other meetings. The Attorney General dismissed it, so. Curriculum, 2017 local growth model. Do you want? oh,
Actually, the
oh,
Board of Education and the rest of us up here need to go ahead and have a
Yeah,
seat.
I was just
She
gonna
has a
ask.
Presentation for us.
There we go. We'll let them escape. Run, run, go. All right. Whoops. Go back to the beginning there. Okay, well, thank you all for staying. And thank you to our principals and assistant principals for coming out tonight. I always ask them to come in case there's any questions about academics that I can't answer. We do this every September. We talk about our data from the previous school year. And this year's a little bit different. We've done the presentation with the board. In August, we looked at our state data, and last week, we actually looked at our growth data. So for them, some of this is going to be a repeat, but I'm sure they understand. So I wanted to start tonight with giving you a little bit of context about the presentation itself, because in the past year to year and a half, we've undergone some major shifts in educational policy, both at the federal level and the state level. As a lot of people know, the federal government reauthorized No Child Left Behind, and now we have the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. And ESSA brings with it a focus on the entire child. It also required states to submit their accountability systems, which those systems look different than they did under No Child Left Behind. And also part of ESSA is a new and ever-changing definition of what it means to be college and career ready. And then on the state level, that kind of worked in conjunction with ESSA, We have Vision 2020 in the state of Illinois and the Illinois Balanced Accountability Model, which is built into our state ESSA plan. Just recently, the state legislature passed our new school funding changes. And last spring, or last school year, was the shift from our ACT for our 11th grade students to the SAT as a college entrance exam. And this has been with us for a while, well, probably 3 years now, is the teacher evaluation that contains student learning growth built into the model. So we've had some major changes that are happening, and that is really impacting now how we look at our student data. So the first thing I want the audience to understand is we're now going through this evolution of accountability. We had No Child Left Behind that started back in 2002, and it was really built around the fact that we gave students a test in the spring to see if they met grade level standards or benchmarks, and then we reported on what percentage of students actually achieved those benchmarks. It was a one test, one score about proficiency, and under NCLB, if you remember, the goal of NCLB was, in the end, to have 100% of students meeting grade level standards, which never was attainable. The next thing that happened a few years ago was Race to the Top, where the focus shifted from this idea of status with one test to the idea of growth. And now with the ESSA model, ESSA is really bringing this idea of a multidimensional approach to defining student success. So it's looking at not only the status or proficiency, but it's also looking at growth and at other indicators of student success. So it's really broadening the definition, and it's giving states and local school districts a lot of autonomy over how to define student success. In Illinois now, this is the model. This is what's in our ESSA plan. A proficiency or status is only 25% of the overall accountability system based on state assessments. And 50% of the model is around student growth, especially for K-8. High school right now, the focus is graduation rate, but as we build out the SAT suite of assessments for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, I believe that that 50% growth on that assessment will be coming. And then the last 25% is around student success indicators, things like attendance, how schools do on the 5 essential survey that comes out every other year, college and career readiness definitions. So some of those other things. So if you think about it, I like the analogy that our presenters used last week. If you think about when you apply to college or you go out to a job interview to get a job, they're not just looking at a test. They're looking at a lot of factors related to hiring you or admitting you into college. And this is kind of the same thing. We're not just going to look at one test score anymore. We're going to look at a lot of different factors. So the Illinois system now is about 50% of it is about growth. So one of the things that I want the audience to understand is there is this relationship between proficiency or achievement status and student growth. As I mentioned before, status is about that one point in time. You take a test, you get a score, whether it's a state test or we're looking at the percent of students meeting standards, or you're taking a final exam or a chapter test. It's all about that one moment in time versus growth, which is looking at how students grow and learn over multiple assessments over a period of time. So much more information. And the only way you really get to status is you have to have growth. You don't just walk in, take a test, and you're there. It's all about growing and reaching a certain level of proficiency. The thing about status is that they expected everybody to hit that piece, that status at the same time, whereas growth, we want growth for every student. We want growth for our students who aren't quite there at grade level, and we also want growth for students who are already proficient at grade level standards. So it's really focusing on all students and making sure that they are learning over time. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at status on our preliminary scores for our state assessments. As you know, we take PARCC for English Language Arts and Math. That's our state assessment for grades 3 through 8. At grade 11, the new assessment is SAT, both reading and math. They're all reading and math. And then what we've done as a district last year is we put the PSAT in for grades 9 and 10 so we can start to track how students are doing leading up to that 11th grade test. And I put those little graphics in there because status, again, it's about hitting that target. It's about everybody kind of crossing the finish line all at the same time. So these are our preliminary PARCC scores. The first thing I want to look at is the district grade levels. And I highlighted our grade level scores in yellow. And you can see the state averages to the left of those scores. Typically what you see in most of these scores is reading achievement is higher than math, and that's true for us as well as the state. And what happens for our scores, as you can see, third grade is our highest, and then it drops. So we start to see a decrease in the percentage of students who are meeting standards. And then in 8th grade, we get a little upswing in those scores. But for last year, you can see that our scores were close to state average or a little above in reading in 3rd grade, and then we had a little bit of a decline there, and the same thing in math. And as I said, these are preliminary. The official scores will come out at the end of October on the school report card. Then we're looking at our elementary schools. We don't look at the middle school because the middle school has all of 6th, 7th, and 8th, so those grade level scores are middle school scores. But for our elementary students in reading, you can see the state averages are in those mid-30s. And as you look across at our grade levels by school, you can see we have several scores that are either at or above the state percentage, and we have some grade levels that are a little bit that are below. So again, it's a mix of scores, but we have some strong scores in there as well. And then, as I said, math is a lower performing subject area. Again, what you see here clearly is that 3rd to 4th to 5th has the scores, the percentage drops. The state has that drop too, although 4th and 5th are but they're very close. But again, they're still in the 30s, well within reach of what we can do with a focus on math. I put in subgroup performance because the state has benchmarks for achievement that will come out of this ESSA plan that has benchmarks for subgroups. And subgroups is a way that you also look at achievement gaps. So you'll notice, you can see the number of students on the left side that are in each of our subgroups. And we have reading and math. Again, the same kind of comparison. Reading scores are higher than math scores. And as you go through each of these different subgroups, you can compare the differences among them. So we've got our ethnicity, our gender, our special education status, and our income status. And those are the groups that the state will look at. Very clearly, except for math between boys and girls, they're within a percentage of each other, there are some differences among each of these subgroups, and you can see that. So the high school assessment is the SAT at 11, and 9-10 takes the PSAT. And these are the benchmark scores that we got last spring. This is a college and career readiness benchmark score that is determined by College Board. And their definition of college and career ready is that students have a 75% chance of earning a grade of C or better as a freshman in a credit-bearing course in college. That's how they define college and career ready. Now, the state has not said what the state benchmark scores are going to be. They have a group of people that are currently working on that. Could be the same, it could be different, we don't know yet. So right now we're using the College Board's college and career readiness benchmark scores. You can see again, the trend continues. Reading meets and exceeds is higher than math. And the interesting thing about the SAT suite of exams is that College Board also gives us a report as to how many students met on both. So they do that calculation for us. So I have no state calculations yet, but when those come out, I certainly bring those to the board. Our reading scores, I think, are pretty impressive. They're definitely, the meets and exceeds is definitely higher than what we're getting at elementary, which is a huge shift from what we had under our other assessment. And again, if you look at our subgroups for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, you can again look at the differences among our ethnicities, gender, IEP, and income status. And again, reading is performing higher than math, and except for the boys and girls in math. And you can see that there are definitely performance gaps between groups. The next assessment I wanted to give you, so we just talked about status. The next assessment I want to go over is our district's local growth assessment, which is NWEA MAP. It is an assessment that we give kindergarten through 8th grade. Last year we gave kindergarten at the very end of the year, so they're not included in the data from last year, but they will be going forward. NWEA is an adaptive assessment, and it's given on the computer. So students get on, they take the test. As they answer questions correctly, the questions get harder. As they answer questions incorrectly, the questions get easier. And out of all of that, they calculate where they're performing. It uses, the analogy is it's equal intervals, just like a ruler. So it's equal intervals, it's not grade level, it's just by what we call a RIT score. And the thing about the assessment is it's a normed assessment, a nationally normed assessment, and it gives us growth targets for students. So as they take the test, they will tell us what is the target that student should hit the next time they take the test. How many points, RIT points of growth, should they get the next time they take the assessment? And then we're able to look at it after every assessment wave. We give the test in the fall, the winter, and the spring, except for 8th grade, because 8th grade is taking their first PSAT. But we do look at that fall to spring growth, and then we're able to make these national growth comparisons. So nationally, you can see we had projected growth for all of our grade levels. We had actual growth that we compared from fall to spring. What's highlighted in green is where our actual growth exceeded our projected growth. And then we have a national growth percentile. What the national growth percentile is saying is that this is how your students did compared to students who took the same test, same grade level, with the same scores. So you could have a classroom of students, every student had their own score, but they're being compared to same score peers across the country. So for instance, in first grade, our first graders scored better than 96% of students nationally in their growth. What you're looking for here are scores at 50%, at the 50th percentile or above. So you can see we've got 3 that exceeded the 50th percentile. We have 2 in the 40s, which means they're close, and you can see the actual and projected growth scores when they're very close, they're approaching the 50th percentile. And then at the middle school, we have some scores that are lower than that. And then when you move on to math, you see the same thing. First grade, third grade, fifth grade, that's where our actual growth exceeded our projected growth. And again, you can look at that national comparison to see how we grew compared to other students that were taking this exam in the country. Again, 3 grade levels that exceeded that 50th percentile. So now we've got a national comparison. We have a state benchmark number for percentage. We have a national comparison. And then the last part of this is our local growth model. We've been using the local growth model now. This is our 2nd year. It was developed by a company named ECRA that specializes in analytics, predictive analytics. And what they did was they took 5 years of our standardized test data and they put it into their statistical package. And what they do are generate local norms. So what's the typical growth look like for our students based on who they are? And they've taken that, obviously over 5 years, they have multiple data points over multiple years. So what happens is the more data points you collect, the better your analytics are, the stronger you're able to predict how students are going to do. So then what we do is we test, when we test in the fall, the winter, and the spring, those test scores go into the local growth model, and then we're able to assign kind of that projected score, what we predict students will do on the next assessment for the year. So we do that on all of our standardized assessments. So after we test in the fall, we get a growth report. After we test in the winter, we get one, and then in the spring, we get a final one for the year. We compare it. So what did we predict the students would do? What did they actually do? And then we get a growth score out of all of that. And what's the nice thing about it is then we're able to take all individual student scores and we're able to bring them together so that we can look at growth for larger groups of students. So we can look at individual students, we can start to look at classrooms of students, courses, particular courses, maybe programs that we're running where we're trying to intervene and help students, grow more. We can look at grade level schools and of course the district as a whole. So it starts with the individual student and it builds its way up. This is kind of the model for it. So you have your student, we have our multiple data points, they're instructed, we get projected results, we compare it to actual results to see what growth is. They refer to it as an effect size. And then the simple thing about it is that the growth is color coded. So we use kind of the red, yellow, green, blue. And what that means is if it's coded as blue, it means that that student or that grade level, that school got higher than expected growth. If it's green, it follows our model with what is our typical or expected growth for our students. If it's yellow, it's lower than expected growth. And if it's red, it means unsatisfactory growth. So then ECRA generates reports for us that we can look at throughout the course of a year to see how our students are doing. So last year, for our model, you can see kindergarten, we started kindergarten, went through grade 8. This is for Park and MAP combined. So they put this into the analytics package and it tells us how many students based on their analytics met the grade level benchmark. And you can see those scores, while they're not exactly the same as what I showed you before, they're still within that same range. And then you can see how did those scores do in terms of growth. And all of our grade levels made expected growth. What we typically do is what we got from our students last year. And that was reading. This is high school reading. It's the same thing. You can see the percent that met benchmarks according to our local growth model. And how did that growth fare? It was expected growth. And then they move on here. We do the same for math. You can see we have a little bit of a different scenario here. We made expected growth in all of our grades except for 4th grade and 6th grade, which had lower than expected growth. And then when we move on to the high school for math, again, you can see the percent that they said met the benchmark and how that growth was. It was expected growth. So right now we're moving along as expected. We get into reading growth for schools, and all of our schools had expected growth. So again, that's taking that individual student, moving it from grade level, looking at it through a school lens. So the entire school, every school made expected growth. And again, when we look at math, it's the same thing. Based on our analytics and how students performed, growth was typical or expected. They also went in and did the same analysis for our subgroups. And you can see all of our subgroups, while we still have those variations in scores, those gaps, the growth that students are making by subgroup is also expected growth. And that's for reading. And again, math, everything is expected growth except for our IEP students, which had lower than expected growth last year. This is math for everybody. That's K. This one is actually K through 11. And again, all of our subgroups in math made expected growth. So the big question is, how do we increase achievement? Because if we're not happy with the percent of students who are meeting benchmarks, how do we increase that? And how do we close achievement gaps? And the only way you can do that is by having students grow in their learning. So we need to be growing students, especially students who are not hitting those benchmarks. We need to have them achieve higher than expected growth. So as the ECRA people say, we have to grow blue, not green, but blue. And that's the challenge that we have. So what I asked the schools to do, rather than go through and develop a full-blown school improvement plan, what we're doing is in a month, our school improvement teams are going to be meeting with ECRA as to look at how do we now embed the growth model into our school improvement processes. So how are we as schools and grade levels going to start looking at this growth metric to drive what we do day in and day out? So what I asked them to do was to come up with key actions that are going to help us kind of grow blue. I started with what I'm doing kind of as the umbrella. And, you know, I've got the training arranged, and we're going to move forward with using it for school improvement and then instructional planning. So part of what we'll do with our school improvement plans is start to change the format that we use to reflect the idea of our local growth model. The other thing that we're focusing on from the district level is technology integration in our classrooms. We have a lot of new devices in classrooms, but we have to start training teachers on how to effectively utilize that in instruction, because the research all shows that instructional technology accelerates learning. So once we become really proficient at doing it, that's going to help us grow blue. We've discussed as a cabinet, as a leadership team with administrators and also with the board, what we need to do to improve math scores. And we have a K-12 math plan that we're implementing this year, as well as at the K-5 level, we are working on an advanced learner plan. We're implementing that this year because we don't want to just focus on students who are not meeting those grade level benchmarks. We want to focus on students who are also high achieving and make sure those students are also growing. The other thing that we're doing this year is a very deliberate use of software to meet individual learning needs in reading and math, because we know we don't always have enough time, enough personnel to target every individual student, and technology offers us a great opportunity to be able to do that with some programs. So we've been very particular in what we've selected, and every grade level has, especially math, which will be a strong focus for us, they have software that they can use. The other thing that we're going to be doing now that we have 3 years of PARCC data, we're going to be looking at our state assessment data to see with the reports that they're providing us, which are much better than they ever used to be. There's actually information they're giving us now that will allow us to actually talk about our curriculum and how do we plan instruction with using state information. You know, before we would get very little. We get a list of students and how they did, but it never really took us to the level of where is this in our curriculum? How do we embed this? So we're going to be utilizing the resources that the state is giving us for that. The next thing is we've been focused a lot recently on increasing student engagement in higher level learning. If we can get kids engaged in high level learning activities, again, that will grow scores. So as school leadership teams, we've been focusing for the last 4 years on data collection around the instructional practices inventory. So that's a classroom observation. We go into classrooms, we collect data on the kinds of learning activities kids are involved with. We have inquiry-based learning, obviously, at our 2 IB schools, which is heavy into inquiry. But now all of our science and social studies standards are also inquiry-based. So all of our curricular changes around science and social studies are going to focus on inquiry as well. And then the idea of STEM education. We've expanded our engineering program to the middle school. We're using defined STEM to bring engineering STEM type performance tasks to all of our classrooms. So we're really focused on that. And then the last piece from my office is, and I'm working with Mr. Neal on this, is focusing on quality of instruction. We're doing a lot of training administratively on teacher evaluation to make sure we're all moving in the same direction, that we're calibrated, that we have reliability of what we do, so it's not one person's evaluation differs from another person. So we have a training plan outlined, and then we're also working with the teacher evaluation committee around how do we move our professional practice. So those 2 things are going to be key for us this year. I'm going to go through slides for each building. I'm not going to read the slides to you, but I want you to look at them with an idea around kind of these big ideas and what the schools are doing specifically, and I'll point out a couple of things for each school. High school, 3 big things stand out for me. One, we talked about, they presented last month at the board meeting, is the hero period. They're, implementing that for support, enrichment, and intervention. It's our second year of working with equal opportunity schools because we've expanded by 200 and some 250 students? 252 students now are in AP courses that weren't there last year. So again, we're getting more students into rigorous coursework. And again, that idea of the targeted software. And the other piece is they're going to a new learning management system called Schoology, which connects really well with Skyward. It's a platform where teachers can post assignments, kids can respond, they can actually do assessments on it, and it connects with Skyward real nicely. So again, it offers that kind of technology environment for student learning, which will help accelerate things. The middle school, they're all about IB. So everything that they're doing this year is really about year 2 of candidacy, getting everything rolling in terms of their units of instruction. They're having training on assessment. They're talking about grading practices. And in addition to that, now they're a one-to-one school. So they're working on their technology integration plan, and they too have software and are doing IPI. So again, it ties right into the big picture. You can see Balmoral has a focus on SMART goals around instruction and reading and math, looking at data sources, focusing on math. They've got school-wide intervention. They've identified days, Performance Tuesday, Fact Friday. And again, they're focused on their software that they're going to be using with Chromebooks. Our elementary buildings, probably within the next couple of weeks, we'll have 12 Chromebooks in a classroom, so we'll be 2 students per every device. Crete, again, is doing something for math called Walk to Math. So they're using their map data to create intervention groups across grade levels. So they're gonna, how are you doing that? You're doing K2? So K2, they're gonna look at how students are achieving, and it doesn't matter about grade level. They're going to send students to an appropriate intervention group based on their NWEA scores, and use the learning continuum to plan instruction. Again, Chromebooks, software, they put in there, they are clustering, as all of our buildings are doing at the elementary, they're clustering those advanced learners in a classroom so we can focus on those students and not, instead of having them spread out among 2 or 3 or 4 classrooms. CSK, they're really following a lot of the recommendations that came out of their IB evaluation visit last year. So they're doing things like deepening inquiry. They're working on peer evaluation, making sure that they have student choice. Brian, most of those were recommendations from your visit. So again, they're following, and we know that IB is heavily into inquiry. So that's again about accelerating growth for students. Monee, actually, if you notice, their math scores were probably the highest that they've been in a long time. Denise is clapping. She's on our math curriculum team. They started differentiating for students by switching math classes a couple of years ago, and they're really seeing a lot of good results because they're able to meet kids where they're at. So that switching combined with some software is really going to, help them. They're focusing on facts very strongly there. And again, this whole idea of using data to monitor student progress is part of their system. Talala now has a math specialist. So with their math specialist, they are going to be implementing the same thing that Crete is doing, which is the idea of they call it walk to math. So again, taking multiple grade levels, figuring out what students belong together for instruction on specific skills, and then move students to those classrooms for that instruction. They're going to try some switching because now Monee is, set the standard for that. So they're going to try some switching. The other thing that they put in their plan that the other buildings didn't is they're going to be implementing 2 defined STEM performance tasks. So again, that's STEM education, but they're also doing with 2 integrated English language arts units that our elementary teachers have been working on for the last 2 years. We actually are writing our own curriculum to go along with other instruction that we're doing. So what every building is doing this year is they're going to implement 2 ELA units that we've written And the teams have been working really hard with the literacy coaches and Gail Bonensteel to make sure that we're incorporating all the things that are required of the standards and that Park is assessing. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that works and how that turns out for us. And then Monee Education Center. We all know that MEC is a little bit different than the rest of the schools, but they have some wonderful things going on. I was over there last week and I said, so let's talk about what are the key things you're doing. So they walked me down the hall and took me into a classroom. They had this, on the whiteboard, they had this whole thing laid out, and they've come up with a theme, and they're calling it the 4 pillars of MEC. So they're focusing on academics, which they do, they always have done. But the thing that's really new for them is this idea of leadership, not only for teachers, but for students, and social emotional learning, and of course PBIS. So those are their 4 pillars. They're using a software program called Achieve 3000. They do goal setting, and this is their 3rd year using it. Last year, they had 100 Lexile points of growth in Achieve, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's, you're looking for 100 points is at least a grade level worth of growth. So they're going to continue with Achieve. They're implementing Leadership in Me program based on the 7 habits of highly effective people, because they want their students to be leaders. And one of the things that they're doing now is expanding what students do in terms of leading their own IEP meetings and their parent conferences. And then they have a lot of social emotional events planned. They participate, and I remember when they did a presentation, they talked about this Chicago Area Alternative Education League. This is an intramural league, but it also teaches social skills and leadership. They've had good success with that. They implement a youth leadership curriculum every day. And then for PBIS, they're really working on restorative justice and restorative practices. So they have that going on. And our last building, but not our least, are our little ones at the Early Learning Center. And again, not a place where you're going to see standardized tests. They're not subject to the accountability system. But what they do is they work very heavily with the state around good early childhood practices. So what's going to be happening for them this year is, first of all, they're going to be learning a new Teaching Strategies Gold system, which is their data collection system. So they're going to be retraining in that. They're getting ready because there's a state accountability visit this year. So they're getting ready for that visit. So that just means that they have to have everything in order for when the state comes, and that's around what does instruction look like, how much playtime do kids have, how are you assessing students, how are you dealing with social emotional. So that's really going to take up a lot of their time this year. But they do wonderful work there, and they're highly successful with their little ones. And fortunately for us at the district level, they're in our building, so we get to see them every day. So those are kind of the highlights of the key actions that we're going to do to grow blue. And once the official state results come out at the end of October, I will come back to the board with the school report cards and all the official data, and we'll look at some other metrics that the state has, such as freshmen on track to graduate, graduation rates, attendance, that sort of thing. So I'll be bringing that back in November. So open for questions. None? Okay, great. No. You did. Anything anybody here would like to add? They all want to go. They want to go home. No questions? No questions? Community, no questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Things are looking good. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
So I guess marching upstairs.
Well, I was looking at Cassie Morgan. She was maybe she'd have a question. No question. I was waiting.
You were waiting for me,
I was, and I had an answer for you too.
I was gonna leave it.
And I have an answer. My. I answered, that's what we call it.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Hirsch. As she stands back behind the curtain. All right, business meeting, consent agenda.
I'm sorry, before you move on, I just have a quick question. Ms. Hirsch, have we communicated anything regarding the changes in the new law with the board on the PE? The PE changes?
No, not yet.
Okay.
And-
So
and-
basically, there's some changes to PE requirements. It used to be required daily. Now it's 3 days. No, PE, yeah. And also, there's some changes to the waiver requirements. So basically, on a case-by-case basis, we can give a waiver for PE for students that are involved in certain sports or physical activity.
Just so you know, I attended the Hauser Izzo legal meeting and brought that paperwork back for Dr. Clark and Dr. Cunningham that they gave us.
And we did talk about it at the committee. of the
Yes.
whole.
I think the thing that people are looking into right now is a concern for our choral, what's the name of our team? Show choir, because I don't think that was officially listed. And we've run out of waivers, if I remember correctly, Laura. So there are things that we have to look at as it comes down. And I was told earlier that you were aware of a bill that was.
I was told it was 1947, but it didn't sound like it from what you were talking about.
But they did specifically address that at the training, saying that that was one of the things included, show choir. He actually used the word show choir.
In
Because I guess they've had other
1947, the
questions.
one that you addressed earlier, right? And from what you said earlier, it didn't sound like it's the same.
It
About
does,
the PE
when
waiver.
when I looked at it, the PE waiver is in there, but it didn't specifically
Didn't
say.
specify Right.
which activity.
And
Show choir.
they use
And-
that as an example because somebody did ask them previous, I guess, to the conversation. And they did include show choir in that conversation, so.
We're
We can
going
get
to have to
clarity
check
on that.
into that. That's the clarity that everybody's looking for.
Right.
Just real quick, just a question or more clarification. I thought we discussed as well. So in order for the public was not, I don't want to say shell shock, but by the scores, the growth, being in the 30%, 20%, so on and so forth, that we were, for all practical purposes, running a state average or a little bit above in many of the categories. But I thought we was going to convey to the public in some manner that, hey, what you're seeing here, don't get too excited in a bad way. I thought we was going to do something on that. I don't know. Remember we talked about that.
We did talk about that.
Right.
And I think Laura was trying to hit that at the beginning. Let me connect her. When she was talking about the whole child and the whole score. One of the first things that she put up there was 25% for attainment, 50% for growth, and then what's the last 25%?
25% for other indicators.
Other
So-
indicators.
And that's well and good, but I understand it, but is that the way we're going to leave it? Or anyway, a little bit more that we can simplify it? And you guys' opinion, you're the experts. I'm going to leave it to you as far as I'm
Simplify
concerned.
the
Just
distribution.
again, so the public can see that, not so much the distribution, but just clarity. If I was looking from the outside in, so to speak, and I'm seeing it for the first time, and I'm looking at a 30% growth rate or below, my first impression, 30%, oh my God, we're doing bad.
Well,
So
yeah, and I know
bet
we.
just an explanation or something on the web, but I don't know how to communicate it, but I
Well,
thought we
what
had
I'll
talked
do,
about it.
what I'll do is I'll take this and what I typically do is insert some slides into this that offers kind of go through what I talked about. So I'll put that explanation in and we'll post it on the website. Some of this is the accountability system. Well, one thing, the accountability system is set by the state. So, that's,
Sure.
But the growth metric, really what we talked about last week is the fact that the state is only performing in the mid-30s.
That's correct. Exactly.
So
exactly.
we're not looking at anything that is saying that, 90 or 100% of our students have to be meeting standards, because nobody is there yet.
Right.
But what is in ESSA are interim benchmarks for grade levels and subgroups that grows over time. It's very similar to NCLB, with the idea of, okay, we're not going to get to 100% now. We're only going to ask you to get to 90%, but you don't have to get to 90% until 2032. So that's part of what's in the ESSA document, and how that's going to play out, it kind of remains to be seen. The last ESSA presentation I went to, they talked a lot about the structure of the system, but the devil's in the details, and they haven't worked out a lot of the details yet. So for instance, they're talking about a fine arts assessment or a fine arts indicator, but they don't know what that is, and they don't know when it's going to happen. They're talking about how are we going to include fine arts into this accountability system. So it's in the document, but they don't know what it's going to look like and how it's going to be implemented. So as the system starts to get up and running over the next, say, 3 years, I think some of these things are going to get a lot clearer to us. Right now, we're just trying to make the change. So yes, I hear what you're saying. I think visually, if you look at it and you go, oh, wow, 35% is not where we want to be. No, it isn't. But again, we're looking at a really difficult test. And if we keep in mind that the idea is to grow kids to that level, and that's what we're doing, I think it's giving us a much bigger picture of how students learn and how they're successful. And what's happened is the one test, one score, let's judge schools based on that, is so ingrained in us now that to get away from it, it's going to take a while. It really is, because we don't, like I said, we don't admit students to college based on one test, one score. We look at the whole student and all of the things that they do. And the same thing when you go out to look for a job. You're looking, employers hire people because of, not only what they do academically and their skill set, but soft skills. I mean, there's everybody comes with, a full package of assets that they bring. And that's what they're trying to capture in this accountability system.
Okay, yeah, and just, again, for the layperson out there, we have had the luxury to hear it a couple times and just kind of been acclimated to the whole process. But the layperson is out there that's seeing it for the first time. How could they grab it real fast and stop and not go down the wrong side of
Right, and I think
the hill, so to
when
speak.
the report card comes out in October, that's those are official. I think a lot of people go to the Illinois report card site, and that's where they get their information. And it has that feature where you can do comparisons with other school districts, which we've done in the past. So, once that information is released, I can start to go in and see how we stack up to other districts in the area and so on.
And
so
share it.
Similar demographics, that sort of thing. We're able to do that kind of comparison.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved.
Second.
Dr. Cunningham?
Consent agenda. A, Superintendent. 1, regular meeting minutes of August 15, 2017. 2, special meeting minutes of August 18, 2017. 3, special meeting closed session minutes of August 18, 2017. 4, committee of the whole meeting minutes of September 12, 2017. B, business. 1, approve payroll for August 2017. 2, approve accounts payable. 3, approve treasurer's report. 4, approve resolution of disposition of surplus property. C, district affairs. 1, press plus issue 95 review and collect bargaining agreement policy edits. and D, donations. Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. We're approving the payroll and all of that, right? On page 7 of 17, under account payables. 7 of 17 under account payables. That's what I, hold on, maybe. Hold on. No, it's not coming up under that. Hold on here. Bear with me.
Oh, it's upside down.
Account payables, I'm trying to find that.
Right. I have a page upside down. No, it's just one.
19? Okay, account payables.
What's the vendor? Because they're alphabetical. We can look for it that way.
I'm sorry, say that again.
What vendor are you looking at?
It was just some transactions by our employees. Something is different here. 25? Yeah, it was different. Our employees, BMO.
On the P cards?
Yeah, BMO.
Oh, yeah, they're all.
Sorry, let's go to BMO. There we go. On the BMO. Still not the pages, but let's go under our HR. Yeah.
I printed it out at home.
On the-
While everybody's looking at that, I need to let you know that there are some financial pages in there when they were scanned. One was scanned upright and one was scanned upside down. So I can fix that tomorrow.
And 2 was left out.
Because I printed it out at home, so I didn't,
Oh, so you got to do that, okay. Yeah, I apologize for that.
I thought it was just the way I printed it out. Mhm.
Okay, I'll get you to the page here, just for clarity. I want to go under,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's alphabetical, but I want to go under Lyle account. Okay, that's page 95 of 187. 95 of 187. And I just had a question on transaction number 4815555485. Again, 4815555485. Just need an explanation on the Hamilton Inn and Suites of Matson lodging. What was that for?
That was for our opening day guest speaker. We have to pay their expenses, so that was paying for the hotel room for the night prior to the opening day presentation.
Okay, I thought maybe you was there.
No, I
I'm
can
like,
go
that's
home.
a short, that's all, just, that's so good.
We have a basement if I get thrown out.
I'm like, okay, what is Lyle doing at the Matson Inn? Okay, all right, I'm good.
And that's the credit card receipt, but there should be a corresponding on the.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of because it's under you because, yeah, I don't know.
And what was the payment to the speaker? What was the speaker fee?
The speaker fee I would have to look up. I don't recall off the top of my head, but it wasn't on the credit card. That was done through a purchase order.
Nobody knows what the fee was for the speaker?
I mean, I can find it for you. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
And again, I'm not being anal about this. There's some clarification. And again, I try to remain on the balcony when it comes to certain things here. But I'm coming after our business manager here. Ken, let's go into Ken as soon as I find him. He's got to be almost, just clarity, that's all. Okay, I'm looking for Ken. Because the pages don't coincide with what I had earlier. 103?
Yes.
Okay, let me flip to 103 here. Okay. It just, Ken, 103, yeah. Okay, I just need clarification. It seems like a lot of swiping was going on with this Verco Incorporation. You see that for transaction 811 for the process day? I can move this mouse.
Let me find out what they're for. I can take a look in the system and find out what
Okay,
they're for.
it's, okay. Of a 6,700? Okay. For one. Yeah. I was like, okay, we'll have a lot of fun with that 6797. Okay, I'm just trying to see. Now, so can you can talk on that?
Yes, Verco is some furniture for, I believe, the middle school that was ordered. And
Okay,
that, so there
and
was
it's
some in and out.
not so much, the,
Yep.
you know, the description, but I'm just trying to come up with the amount. How it was just, you know, it looked like it was double dipping there, same day. Why couldn't we not just make one transaction? We got
Sometimes, again, that's by the vendor. Sometimes the vendor will run it twice and not know that they've run it twice. and
That's what
then
I'm alluding to.
They just, then they'll just debit it right away.
So what was the bill? The bill was just 67.97?
67.97.
Okay, then they hit us twice and then they reimbursed us back.
And then they reimburse us back.
Okay.
Obviously, that was an error in that. Those-
And do
Working
you
in a
remember
business
what
where we
furniture
do.
that was?
I
use
believe
credit
this
cards
was
that
from
have-
the middle school.
I mean, do you know what the furniture was?
Not off the top of my head, but I can check it out and find out for sure.
Okay. All right, so take care of that. And going down.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
Go ahead.
Well, when you,
Sure.
and because with that, I'd like to know, was it, are we still trying to fill classrooms from the construction or?
I don't believe there were lockers. I believe there was some furniture that we had to replace that was broken. I think that's one of the things, but I'm not sure if that is for that one, but I can check that out for sure and see.
Okay, just one more clarity on our business manager account as well. Had a lot of pizzas, Aurelio's going on, same day, a lot of swiping. Why was it just so many multiple?
There were some $25 gift cards that were
But
purchased.
that's what those are, gift cards?
Those are gift cards that were
So you was
purchased.
using gift cards?
Well, those are gift cards that were purchased for the Parade of Champions.
Oh,
We
you was
did-
buying gift
Yep,
cards?
Yep,
$25 each?
$25 each, yes. So I had them ring them separately.
Oh, okay.
Because that way you get a receipt that you give with the
Got it. Okay.
activation receipt for that.
Okay.
And that we didn't use the gift
I was about to
cards.
say, were
We
they
still
given
have those
away?
in the district, so we haven't used them. And that, so I still have those.
Right.
Okay, and the last one, what about this speeding ticket? It's like, no, I'm just kidding. The violation. That's all, okay. Yeah, no, just kidding.
Violation.
You're welcome.
I have
Sure.
a little question. Our principal is in the audience. Do you still need lockers at the middle school? Because there are walls full of lockers in the old high school.
Ms. Chrysos, can you come up to the microphone? All of the board members are not hearing you. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi, okay, what's the question?
I just said, if I asked if you still needed lockers, because the old high school has row after row after row, and many of them look to be in very good shape.
I think we are fully complete as of now. We had just had to install lockers in the locker rooms, in the boys' locker room most recently. So we did look at the ones that were there, but I don't believe they worked for the space.
They wouldn't fit in there? Okay.
No, because you need small lockers, those are full lockers for the.
Yeah,
locker room.
most of them are full, but we were looking at
Yeah.
them the other day, and there's tons of them, so.
Yeah.
So all students have their regular locker and a gym locker now? All
Yes.
students are taken care of, correct?
Yes.
And we're dressing out now.
We are dressing. We are dressing. the
Okay,
gym.
thank you, because I know there was a small issue with some gym lockers or something, not
Took-
everybody having a
taken
gym
care of.
locker.
Mhm, that was last year. We went all of last year without gym lockers in some places, so. And some kids did not have a gym locker all of last year.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks, just want to make sure we were good on that.
And can you give clarity on the furniture that was ordered?
So there was furniture that had to be replaced in some cases. So the art room chairs were breaking, the first set that we ordered. And they were, I don't believe, under warranty any longer. So they had to order some new, more sturdy stools that we found were working better in the science lab. So we ordered those stools. And then the rest of the library was never equipped with an appropriate number of tables. So there were tables that needed to be put in. There was an additional space that was built next to the amphitheater, and there wasn't enough seating for that space, so we had to order some chairs there. And I think that's a couple extra teacher desks because we didn't have enough new teacher desks in the spaces, and a couple of teacher chairs. That's basically what the order would consist of.
So are you all now fully furnished?
We are fully furnished for the spaces that we have. Yep.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, we're very
She's
tight on
referring-
space. I'm referring to space. The space is very tight. We're
Okay.
doubled up in spaces, with 2 teachers to spaces. We have both of our PD rooms are full, and they're basically office spaces now. So we are full up.
Do you still have teachers with traveling classrooms?
Yes, ma'am. There are at least 9 running around. That's not inclusive of the special ed department. Yep. Lots of them. There's lots of carts running around. All health is all on a cart. I could go into detail if you'd like, but there's lots of people on cart. Lots. So a good chunk of our people. Most of our special ed department is running around, and all of our, for the most part, 6 of the 9 language acquisition Spanish classes are on cart. The 3 integrated studies are on cart. So you have over 15 people.
How's that working for you guys?
It's difficult. It's difficult. There's no space to be had. For example, first hour, really in the beginning part of the day, 1st through 5th almost, there are no available classrooms, so we can't even open another section if we needed to because we're getting bigger on size. It's frustrating for the staff because when they have plan time, they're all huddled into a science room trying to get work done. If they're trying to pull kids, there's sometimes not enough space to work with kids in a small group. I welcome you to come over and talk to the staff. They'll tell you what they're feeling like. It's a very difficult scenario when you want to be able to have your classroom set up for an instructional lesson and you have to move everything out so the next class can come in and go back out and come back in, and it goes on all day long. So, consideration could be given to expanding the space. And I know we're just year 2 in, but that is something that we would ask you to look at very seriously.
So I have a couple of questions. So first, with the chairs that broke, did anybody get hurt?
No.
Okay.
No one's hurt. We just kept removing them as they were breaking and finding that more and more were coming out.
Okay.
And trying to repair. And it was really, for the amount of time and effort that was being taken for those chairs, it was cheaper to just replace them with the stools, different stools.
Another thing with construction, to Dr. Cunningham, we can, celebrate the completion or whatever, but if anybody's ever built anything, that a lot of things come up, especially in the first year of building. So are we making sure that we're seeing or trying to see if the decisions that we made, are they working for the building? And also, in general, what kind of process does your administration have to share like something like this? If something's not working, I know that we hear about the overcrowded classrooms. We have no problem hearing that. But if something's not working or if there's a resource needed, I remember finding out at the high school that with the electronic books. They were sharing the subscription with teachers they knew from other districts for electronic books. So my question was always, how do we hear from our staff if things are not working? Is there a process put in place? Does our staff feel comfortable saying, hey, this is an issue, can we talk to you, or can you bring it to the school board? Because, we just find this out just from Mr. Brown starting questioning, some numbers. So I just want to make sure that there's a process in place if our staff is finding things to be difficult or challenging. First thing I'll hear teachers say, well, there's no money. There's money. It just needs to be properly allocated. And this sounds like something that we can't have a project and then we're kind of leaving it. And I'm not saying you are, but in this sense, this is my first time hearing, I knew about the carts and all of that, but this is my first time hearing that it was just a real difficult situation. So again, what's the process for that? And are we going back and making sure the construction that we've done is feasible and it's applicable and all of that, and it's working?
When is your lunch meeting with CMMS?
I've had one lunch meeting with CMMS already last week. I've had, that's part of the process. One of the things is we have an administrative meeting, and I guarantee you, Kokona's going to tell us about issues and concerns that she has with the size of classrooms or the ability of the actual school that we have now to hold all those classes. We have those conversations. And that's one. So I see all the administrators in the district monthly. And then we've started a second one, which is I go out for lunch meetings and I meet with teachers and ask them about concerns, issues, and problems that they're having. Now, my first time at the middle school, because of the challenges with space, not as many of them came to see me as I saw at Crete. I saw them all at Crete Elementary, and every issue that they had at Crete Elementary really came out well.
What do you mean because of the challenges of space? There was no room for you to meet with people?
Well, there's room for them to meet, but because it's so far away, the teachers don't always want to all come to the lunchroom area. They will take their food and go back so that they can get into another area and be closer in by their classrooms and such.
I have a question for you.
I don't think were you finished answering?
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. But what we have is we are making sure that we have the ability to get that input from the teachers. And we are sharing that input with our staff. It comes back anytime there are issues and concerns. And once we've gone through those issues and concerns, if there are needs that we have that we need to take to the school board, it will come to the school board after that.
Okay, so were you aware of this issue?
I was aware that we have issues with the number of people on carts, no doubt. And we have been aware of this concern even before we finished. We talked about this, and we talked about having 4 additional rooms, and would we do it and would we not? We have an outstanding program of IB over there. We have attracted more students, and they came up with a way to get through it, which is had to do with trimesters and putting more people out, but it's not the way that we would want to do it if we had choice of building 4 more classrooms, no doubt.
Okay, so what's the plan?
Our plan is not finished yet. Right now, they're going through what they're going through. I can't fix it right now, but we will have a plan that will be part of our FMP. Because there will have to be some discussions about room and space in that building, and that's part of FMP.
I guess I just don't understand why that wasn't all addressed before the plans were even created for the middle school. We knew what probable enrollment was. Yes, you came after the fact and asked for 4 classrooms, but why wasn't everything taken into consideration initially when this project was proposed? We were assured there was going to be plenty of space. There's going to be plenty of space. There's going to be plenty of space. And then after everything was approved, it was, we need 4 more classrooms. So why, in the beginning, was that not all addressed? And why was it not addressed until after the project was approved?
Are you referring to, because we had a special board meeting where we picked the,
No, I'm not talking about the alternatives. I'm talking about space issues. I mean, 4 extra classrooms is a
no,
lot
what's
of
the
extra
time
classrooms.
frame? Are you talking about before the special board
For the
meeting?
special board meeting.
Okay.
It just seems to me that we should have known before the project was approved that there was potential space issues.
Well, one of the things that they did, if I remember correctly, with this space issues is in order to make sure that we took care of money and took care of issues, that they built programs, the entire program, and then they had additions that they would add to. Those additions weren't added as a total because we wanted to make sure that the board was okay with the amount of funds that we're spending. That's why those additions came up, because they were separate. They were in the original plan, but they were separate additions that they would add.
And some things they just presented to us as alternates because
Yes,
we knew
they
that
came with,
we
yeah, it
could or
was an
could
alternate.
not. If
Right.
we
it
didn't,
was an alternate.
Right, and we
Then we
said
were
at
gonna
that
have
meeting,
this
and we said the
situation.
same thing, I think, in essence, we said, please approve the alternates.
Right,
That
you
we
came
did
to the
need
board
that
meeting,
space. Yes.
and you requested.
did.
Yes,
You
right.
did.
I mean, that was even, right around the time we were either breaking ground or had just started to go into that direction when that meeting was going on, or was right prior to even breaking ground. I can't recall timeframes. But before we even kind of got headfirst into the project, the concerns were flagged. I mean, we from my level anyway, we kept saying, we need to move forward on these alternates because there is no way we're going to have the space. And, we would have, if had the choice, far gone some of the other things that maybe were put in there and gone with the classroom spaces, and those concerns were relayed. So, at this point in time, I think, it's a hindsight situation, and obviously with the alternates not having been selected at that point in time, there's nothing we can change about it. We're making do with what we have. And, my staff is doing an admirable job, really working through it. And we've made a lot of changes this year to sort of facilitate it, scheduling wise, changed our whole master schedule, really tried to eliminate some movement that was going on in the building. But that's a whole big shift for us and a change in practice. And so, we're doing what we can with what we have resource wise, but it's a short-term fix as best I can tell you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions now, if I can talk. I remember sitting in a special meeting and it was asked very point blank, do we have enough space? The answer was yes. So,
I never answered the yes, sir.
hey, you did. You said yes. Okay.
No, I'm going to insist that I did not say yes, sir. No offense intended, but I said, I believe what was said was you asked if we could make do with what we have, and I said I don't have an option but to do so.
That's not how it came across, but we'll differ. We'll agree to disagree on that. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna chime in with her and say she did say that she wanted those classroom spaces.
Thank you.
Not when I asked the question. Okay.
We're way off subject.
I have a couple more questions here. I would like to talk without being interrupted constantly. The question now that I have is, I would like to see how many classrooms you need, and I would also like to see what the projection is in the pipeline of students. So in the next 4 or 5 years, if we're going to keep that same level of students in that building, what is your count now? 1,100, something like that?
A little over 1,100.
A little over 1,100, if we're going to maintain that level in the next 4 or 5 years, and see if they have a need now, and 2 years from now we got empty classrooms. That's something that I would not like to see. So I would like to see what the pipeline is for, say, the next 6 years or so. And I would like our architects to give us a cost on what would be for how many rooms you want, and coordinate that, let the Board of Education know what the cost would be, because when they built that building, they built it to be expanded. that building wasn't built with hard, we talked about that, and they said they had space there to expand it in a quick fashion. So, I'd like to see some numbers on what it would cost, and then we can make an intelligent assessment on what to do with this. And the last thing with them carts, 2 days after that school opened, I think they were running around with carts, and I made a comment about it. Said, "This is crazy. What is this all about?" And that's a year ago. So this is nothing new with that cart issue. Okay, thank you.
Can we get this on the committee of the whole for next month? Discuss
ma'am.
it. Thank you. We have a
No, I still have a question regarding the agenda here, please. If y'all, if we can get through this, it shouldn't take long. Business manager, I do have a question regarding the approval of the treasury report, specifically page 106 of 187. Just need a little clarity. (106) of 187. We're talking about our revenues and expenditures. And you have at the bottom of the page there that our beginning fund balance or balances are under internal audit. That I believe that's you and your team doing that? Yes. Okay. And the health and dental fund is being independently audited and incorporated into the Skyward system. Do you know of a reserve? We are self-insured, right? And do we not have an insurance reserve? Either you or Dr. Cunningham can answer that.
There is an insurance reserve. I don't know that amount offhand, so I can get that amount for you though.
Okay, typically it's no fixed numbers, but I've seen numbers in excess of $1 million. Just haven't seen that around lately.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this right, I just did a quick calculation on the end fund balance and the budgeted revenues. So if we just hit those numbers in, again, it's in our board policy that the board shall maintain a certain percentage, I believe it's 25%, 20% of our fund balance. So we write at 38%, which is good. Looking at these numbers, I just took 27 million over the revenues, which is 71 million. But what gets me is, I don't know where this working cash came from at the beginning of the fiscal year. The working cash, that's the fund number 70. It has almost $1 million. And then we budgeted, brought in about 264 million. But as of right now, it's saying we have 17,000 some odd dollars. What happened? Because I thought our working cash was wiped out, so I don't know where that's 984.
I know you've
84,000.
continued to levy for working cash. When I looked at your levy certificate, I saw where you continue to levy for working cash. It's on your levy certificate, so
Really?
I've seen that. So
Okay, I have to go back and look at that.
yeah,
I didn't think we levied for working cash.
yeah, you do. There's a minimum amount. In fact, that's the amount that I believe that was levied for
Okay.
for this year.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm good with that. But if I look at these sheer numbers here, the revenues as budgeted of $71 million, and then the expenditures as budgeted as $77 million, that's a $6 million deficit. What the heck is going on there? Are we missing money, or because I think the tentative budget only shows a couple million?
Yeah, no, the tentative budget that I have shows a $4.4 million deficit, so it should be about a 4.4.
Yeah, it's showing almost
Those
6.
numbers, I believe, were put into the system by Dr. Williams, actually, so they don't have my current numbers in there. The ones that are presented to the board as a tentative budget. So that report is coming directly out of Skyward. So the new numbers have to be put in there, won't be put in there until after the approval of the tentative budget.
Okay, but I see this fancy signature up there.
I see that fancy signature too, but that's what's in the system right now. And that.
Okay, so you're going to take the blame for it, huh?
I will. I will
Okay.
take the blame for it.
All right, so let's try to make that as crisp as possible because
Sure.
I'm tracking those numbers internally, my internal self. Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Surma and I have had conversations regarding the auditing that he's doing to some of the things and some different reports.
Sure.
And et cetera, that he wants to bring to us and some potential changes that he'd like to make to our reporting. So he is, I know,
Exactly.
working very hard on that. So thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And I don't expect him to, I mean, he's a professional and I don't expect him to bring everything that his predecessor had to the table. He's going to do things that he feels is best to move the
Sure.
process forward. So I appreciate it. But those numbers kind of stood out.
Sure.
And, you know, one thing that I'm going to be bringing to the table again to revisit is the fire prevention, safety, life safety
Mhm.
bonds. So
And I know for a while, we weren't even getting these treasurer's reports because they weren't accurate in Skyward. There was some issue with Skyward that they weren't being prepared. So
Right.
okay,
appreciate getting them.
on that note, President Gasparo, I will go back and revisit just what your predecessor was trying to do as she deemed the ineffectiveness of Skyward as it relates to the business department. So I'm hearing some issues right now. Is that something we want to go back and revisit? That was a big ticket item, $300,000 or $400,000.
I don't
she
believe it was
adamant about that.
Yeah, Mr. Surma can probably add some of this, but I think it
Oh,
was
you feel
more
okay with
user
that?
issues than Skyward issues.
I will tell you, I'm ecstatic having Skyward. I think it's the best system out there.
Case closed.
That
Let's
It's
pretend like
true.
nothing
So-
happened. Case closed. Don't more.
I mean, just to, Mr. Brown, just to kind of give you an example, today we met as an insurance committee and we were able to get online enrollment of insurance in Skyward, and it'll be electronic now. So that's all done. So, you know, it is a good system. It doesn't mean it doesn't have a little bit of quirks, but I'm familiar with those quirks, and things like this, quite honestly, are user error, not system error. And I'll take the fall for that.
Well, I kind of always, from what I know, again, I'm not a parent.
Mhm.
I was previous parent, but I'm not a parent using Skyward and all of that. But what I read about it, I was defending Skyward.
Sure.
And I was really defending it hard. But to have you come on board to validate that,
Right.
case closed.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
I do
That's
have
all
a couple of questions too. So you must have been in my brain, but I would like to know, where are we on a couple of things regarding for one, I did see, yes, it appears that there's a $6 million deficit. I know, Dr. Cunningham, when you first came on board, that was, you know, one of your things that you were really trying to do. I know we have since settled 2 contracts and other things I'm sure that are adding to this. So where are you on that? Are we still trying to decrease this deficit? I see us creeping back to the historical deficit this district carried for years, and I know part of that was the state payments and all of that. I'm sure we'll be seeing ourselves coming out of that with the new funding and all of that, but do you still have a plan to reduce the deficit? Also, my colleague brought up the life safety issues. Where are we on that as well?
We still have plans for a reduction of the deficit, and we still have struggles with it being a structural deficit. So we're looking for plans that we can do together to find a way to ameliorate our structural deficit. We look at the numbers today that say $6 million. First of all, there's a mistake there, and Ken has admitted that, and we'll fix it. That's the first thing we need to say. And then the rest of it is.
I'm sorry, when you guys say mistake, are you saying that these numbers are incorrect, or were these just the numbers that were valid at the time this document was created?
Sorry. The numbers that are in there, the one column that is inaccurate is the $77 million. That is this budget number, and what that is that is a field that is in Skyward that was populated by my predecessor, and those numbers were put in there. The numbers I presented to the board as a tentative budget came up to approximately $4.4 million, okay? the deficit. Those numbers have not been inputted into Skyward to override those numbers yet because the board has not approved that budget yet. So I don't feel comfortable putting that in until the board approves that. As far as Dr. Cunningham was referring to, I've begun and I've met with Mr. Nelson and Mrs. Gasparo on what I am doing in my office when it comes to looking at the budget. So I am doing an account by account, line by line analysis, and I show them that I believe just by doing that, I'm going to be able to reduce the deficit. And also by looking at the revenue that will be generated by the new evidence-based model and some other things, I'll be, well, if we get our money, you're going to be surprised, but it looks promising, to be honest with you. So, I need to finish that analysis though in order to be able to share that with the board. I will tell you, I will not have that analysis fully done by next week, but I will have that done by the October board meeting. So I'll be able to share with you what I'm going to call an adjusted budget that will have a different number there.
And as far as SB 1947, we're at 68% adequacy.
Well, it says
Correct.
67. The last time I looked at it, it said 67. We were going back and forth about
Going
that.
up.
But the challenge that Ken and I, because we were talking about that today, is we're at 69% free and reduced lunch. And for some reason, they have on that adequacy list that we're only at 53% free and reduced lunch. That's listed on the sheets that are on Funding Illinois and that have come from the state budget. So we are still after that. It has us listed at getting 447,000. You probably was 447.
447.
449. 449.
Yeah.
We're that's what it has listed that we will get in addition to what we got last year.
So those numbers, as you know, are not solid.
Not yet. They haven't determined that yet.
Those were estimates,
Right.
but we want to make sure when the estimates become final that they have a number that we agree on for free and reduced lunch, because that should put us, we would hope that would give us additional
Right,
funding.
because those 27 indicators, that was a question,
different.
because who's reporting some of these numbers to ISB? Are they going direct to the school districts to get the information, or, so that could be part of the problem. Where are they getting the information
Agreed.
from?
Right.
Agreed, and that's why we got out there quickly to start checking those numbers so that any issues and concerns that we had, we could mention them and make sure that when we talk to ISB, when we're talking to others, that we get full credit for what we have here so that our adequacy number is accurate.
What tier are we in? Do you
Excuse
know
me?
Which tier? Are we tier?
We're tier two.
Two? Yeah.
We're tier two as of now, but we're tier two.
So that means so 4 is the neediest districts. We're considered tier 2, even though we're only at 68% adequacy.
And I believe we should be tier 3, and we were going to be working to ensure that we're recognized as tier 3 and we get the tier 3 money.
Okay.
Right now, we're not.
And that's important because that's how the money is distributed, based on what tier you're in. The neediest districts gets the first, yeah.
So this is the,
Do you know what those breakdowns are from 1, 2, and 3? Do you know where it breaks down?
I think the neediest districts get the first 50% of the money.
But like, you say we're in tier 2, what percentage begins tier 3? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know the cutoffs.
It's been a while since we
Can
did
put that in the
that,
fence
but
here, or-
we're very close to the fence.
Yeah.
We'll-
And it changes constantly. It will
Yes.
always change. That's the thing. So
Because the
it's-
numbers
yeah.
that we were reported, we
Right.
didn't agree with.
No,
We're tier 2.
The thing also, just to mention, board, I think I shared this with everybody in the FYI, we are getting our hold harmless payments. So we are getting those. It's the additional money yet that we don't know, and we don't know when that's going to come or when they're going to decide that. So we're just waiting to see on that.
I'm hearing next year. Like next calendar year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that makes,
February?
okay, that makes perfect.
Yeah,
that makes-
that's what's out there, but
And that makes perfect sense because
does.
when we had discussions with some of the people who were involved, they said they were 6 to 9 months behind. And if that's still, that would
February to
be the-
March.
Yes.
Right. I will say that our Title I money has come in a little bit higher than I had estimated. Title II money actually came in a little bit higher, is coming in a little bit higher than I had estimated. So,
And
we
got Title
IV. We
that
got
we
Title
didn't
IV. We
expect
got
at
some
all.
Title IV money too. So there is some revenue that's coming in higher than I had anticipated. So that's good.
Yeah, but that's not a big component. The federal money is not a big component of our revenues.
No, but as
regardless,
you normally tell us, every little bit helps.
it does. I'm not hating on that.
Can you
So,
please tell me what Title IV is? I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's just a little bit higher than Title III.
Go ahead, Laura. There's our title
I'm not
expert. Our
mad,
title
Jim.
expert jumps in.
Go over there. Get away. Title IV is new. It came in under ESSA, and it's for basically that whole child type of thing where we can enhance our programs with it. It isn't a lot of money. The federal government initially allotted like $1.6 billion, and it dwindled to about half of that. So basically, districts are getting 10,000 is the kind of the floor on it. We got $29,000, which is a nice number because once you get over $30,000, there's some requirements about what you have to do with it. But you can use it to pretty much do anything that's going to enhance your academics. So one of the things that we've discussed at the high school, since the high school isn't one of our title schools, but we now have this EOS, AP. Yes. And so what we're working on budgeting it for is to help support AP exam fees for our students, because now we have an expanded AP program. We have more students that will be able to take the test. The tests are pushing $90, $100. So now we have money to at least kind of offset some of that cost.
That is something that the parents were concerned about at curriculum night when we were sitting in the AP
Yes.
courses.
Our teaching staff also had requested that from us.
Okay.
Just one thing, I know, but this is just a more of a general comment. Again, back in 2000, I believe it was 10, where we had a $5.6 million deficit, and the school district was in a spiral. We ended up laying off 100 staff members, so on and so forth, okay? I think that was the last time we had a balanced budget in 2011, but it's easy to have a balanced budget when you start laying off. I ran out there with the notion that I can solve world hunger and we're going to maintain a balanced budget. That's not realistic these days, to give the students what they need. But as long as we watch our budget, it's going to be deficit in nature for the foreseeable future. So don't get too scary when you see a deficit out there. But it's how much. It's structure in nature, meaning that we do all we could. We're doing the right thing, and we still may have a deficit. That's all. Back to you.
There is a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Present.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. I have a couple of thank yous to read. Joanne Jones to Culvers of Monee. On behalf of the students and staff at Monee Elementary School, I'd like to thank you for your generous donation of school supplies. The supplies will be used for students who cannot otherwise provide their own materials. Your generosity has made it possible for them to start the school year well prepared, which will help them to be more successful. We also thank you for thinking of our staff with the delicious custard. It was very much enjoyed. We appreciate your continued thoughtfulness and consideration of our students. Also from Joanne Jones to Ruth Smith. On behalf of the students and staff of Monee Elementary School, I would like to thank you and the VFW Auxiliary number 450 for the generous donation of school supplies. The supplies will be used for students who cannot otherwise provide their own materials. Your generosity has made it possible for them to start the school year well prepared, which will help them to be more successful. We appreciate your continued thoughtfulness and consideration of our students. And from Aaron Lane to the Crete Fire Department, thank you very much for the Crete Fire Department's donation of 3 laptops for Crete Elementary. They will certainly come in handy for our staff members. Again, thank you for your generosity and for being supportive friends to our school. And that is it on the thank yous. Action reports, business, approve the insurance committee recommendation.
Mr. Sermon?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
He was getting questions. No, he was getting a question.
Excuse me, I need a motion to approve the insurance committee recommendation to change HMO and PPO insurance plan designs.
So moved.
Second. Who was that?
Cheryl and Nelson.
Nelson. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sermon.
Thank you. And before I want to start, I do want to say that the development of this proposal and this recommendation is by the insurance committee, which is a collaboration of board members, union officials, administration, teaching staff, and classified staff. So it's truly a collaborative effort, and I really appreciated working with them, along with Mr. Neal taking kind of the lead in the beginning, and the two of us kind of working together with them in that. As you'll see in my board report, there are some planned changes that will minimize the increases, not only to the board, but also to the employee. So those are in my board report. One of the things we are going to be doing is a large communication push to our staff, starting with some email communication, but also culminating with a all-district event on Institute Day on October 6th, where all employees will come together and we'll be able to share with them the changes that are taking place, the premium amounts that are taking place, along with showing them the online enrollment piece that we're going to be doing electronically. We met earlier today to go over all of that and to prepare for the meeting, and I think we're ready to go. One of the big items you'll see in the one of the changes is 1-800-MD that can be used instead of people going directly to an emergency room or even to urgent care. They'll be able to have 24-hour access to 1-800-MD in order to get a diagnosis of what may have occurred and get some help that way, which again will minimize costs in the future. So it's only really a one-year commitment that we're going to have to see how it goes, and then we'll be able to evaluate it at the end, see if it was successful, and then make a decision whether to continue that or not. So I don't know if the board has any questions. I have included also the costs you'll see on the financial impact. Those numbers, as I said earlier, are included in the budget that I have developed in that. So there would be no additional expenditure in the budget for that. So that is all in there. Okay.
You know, I know we are allegedly using a zero-based budgeting method.
Mhm.
So have you been given from each department their budget? That's how I would assume you came up with the tentative budget. Is
Yes.
that correct?
So what I do is I first looked at the information, some of the files that were left for me by Dr. Williams. Some of those had the department budgets in there.
Okay.
I first inputted those into my own spreadsheet, and then I met individually with each department head, assistant superintendent. I haven't met with the principals yet, and we have a principal meeting coming up at the end of this week that I'll be sharing with them. And I give them and talk to them and say, this is what I have. Let's now talk about that and let's review it. So they will review it. They will give any recommendations back to me, and then we'll have discussion on that. So I talk with all those individuals and department heads.
On the individual level?
Yes.
Okay. So at the end of the day, this is going to cost the district an additional, what, $400,000 or $500,000?
About $500,000,
About
yes.
$500K. Okay. 543 is in there.
Mhm.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. I had to give my eyes a break. Okay. I do, again, that 543, who's absorbing that cost? The district, right?
Yes.
So why do we have as the community impact under justification NA. Isn't the community eventually going to pay for this, regardless of what it is? I just, regardless, and I'm not saying this is a high
Sure.
number, a low number, cost goes up. But should we, when it comes to money, we're all in tune about expenditures and the property homeowners and the taxpayers
Sure.
should not pay this. At the end of the day, $400 and some odd expenditures, the taxpayers is gonna absorb it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
But it could also come out of grants, it could also come out, but I do understand your point, Mr. Brown, where that from a community impact standpoint, I could list that on there. I'm not opposed to that. You know.
I mean, I just think, I mean, it's
In the
impacting
past, what have we done?
We haven't? You said we haven't? in
No,
the past?
I'm asking what have we done in
Oh,
the
I don't know.
past
That's-
when
I
it
just
comes
look
to
at
that?
this.
Do
I'm
we
just
know?
looking at it.
I don't know. I haven't looked in past reports, but I can take a look at that and see. Yeah.
Okay, where do we put that number at 5 something? Where is that?
It's under the financial impact.
The
On the
financial
board
impact?
report.
159.
Page 159.
On the next page, okay. This is the 2-page. Okay, so financial impact. I guess we could, there's work in progress on this. I think we still, I guess when we have our board retreat or whatever, and we set the goals, we've been trying to clean this up as far as all of our strategies, so on and so forth. These strategies only went from 2008 to 2013, 5 years, and we haven't cleaned them up since. So that should be accelerated on our part. Okay, because it seemed like every justification we have is, this is the reason we're doing this, to ensure that we are financially responsible, efficient, and all of that. It's just kind of a rubber stamp. It's kind of robotic in nature that we're using that, as opposed to really, really getting in tune what the justifications really are. So, okay, I get it.
I totally, I mean, this is really good, I think, for our employees. However, I do share similar concerns with, we just talked about there's a deficit, right? Not very small, in my opinion. We do have districts that are operating in deficits, but we have a lot of districts in Illinois that are not. So when we're looking to take on another 500,000 or whatever, I think we need to be able to articulate, where is that money coming from? If we're 4.5 million in a deficit, where is this money coming from? And I know in the past that sometimes we've done, we've taken on some programs or whatever, knowing, we're gonna pay for it or whatever, but we have to be financially responsible, at least have an answer as to where this money is gonna come from. And that kind of takes me back to my original question about the furniture at the middle school. That's why I was asking, is that a part of that budgeted amount that was already for construction, just to get, clarity? Because if it's already accounted for, it's already accounted for. But if things come our way and we have the opportunity to purchase them, we always have to look at, do we have the ability to buy it? And I don't know if that was really, looked at or whatever. It's kind of like, for me personally, if I'm in the store and something's on sale and it's a really good price, but is it in my budget to get it? And in my mind, we'll just get it anyway, because it's normally double that. But do you have it in the budget, to get it? So I agree with Mr. Brown. Where's this money coming from to pay for it?
I really commend the committee. I commend my colleagues, and we should. That's what it's all about, to have committees go out there. This is tiresome. This is burden on each and every one of us to join committees and try to make things happen. So we should trust our committee people who's going out and spending their exhausted time and doing this and doing that. And we should value their judgment and their decision, and when they bring it back to the full board. I really do. So those who have worked on this, I really do value it. I really do. I really do. Don't give me that look.
Yeah, it's not about not valuing it. We still just have to make good decisions. I see too, I guess it's an increase for employees as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I do want to just jump in here because I
ahead.
am on the committee. And when we got to this dollar amount, the first thing I do is I look at Ken and I say, is this in the budget? Do we have this money? And he answers yes. So again, we've hired him. I trust him to be able to be the one that tells me. I mean, I don't know. That's, he's our financial man. So we did ask in that committee meeting, do we have this money? Is this in the budget? That type of thing. The answers were yes. So I'm
Being in a
trusting that he
budget doesn't
knows
mean
where
we
it's
have the
coming
money
from.
for the budget. So when you're creating a budget and you're allocating money, correct? This is what we're budgeting for that. It doesn't necessarily mean we have it because we have a deficit.
Right, but
So
we
when you
asked
look at
both of
what
those
we ask,
questions.
what's coming in versus what's going out, we technically do not have the money when we have a deficit. Is that correct?
That is correct. But
Okay.
here's the thing that we didn't really talk around. One of the things that we did, and you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the change in our numbers, is that we've settled contracts with our unions. Part of the settling of the contracts with our unions was an agreement about healthcare and how much healthcare is going to cost, what they're going to share in their healthcare and what they're not. And what the committee did was we had increase. We had significant increases that came at us because of healthcare. When we were negotiating with unions about salary and such, we didn't have an idea about the number. I don't know that we ever really went through how much we thought the increase would be. The increase was a little higher than we expected. And what we did was, my understanding is they worked in the committee to find ways to reduce how much impact that new cost for healthcare was going to hit the district and hit the pocket of our employees. And the challenge that you have there is, no, we didn't know. But yes, it does have to get in the budget because it is part of our negotiated agreement. It's part of what we do for those people that work for us. We didn't want it to be $500,000. I'm sure they didn't want it to go up. It's just the challenge that we have with healthcare every year. And we are self-insured, so it really comes right at us. And I think that's kind of what you were talking about. Well, how much do we have?
I think it's a matter of how we look at it. Because we can, say, well, we actually have the money because we can buy it. But this just contributed $500,000 more to our deficit.
Yes.
Basically.
No argument.
So what is our mindset when it comes to what we actually budget for and trying our best to stay within those limits? What's our philosophy?
Well, the philosophy here is we have to follow, first of all, what our bargain, what we've signed on the dotted line to say that we're going to do.
And what exactly, I get, without getting into all the details, the contract basically says that we will have discussion. It doesn't say that we will lower. Is it a number, a specific number? Say we will have
There's a
discussion
specific
to lower, to make
there's
it
a
more
specific
effective.
number that is agreed upon in the contract that that will be paid by the district.
Okay.
That is agreed upon by the district, and we pay for our teachers and for our union members for them to have insurance at a PPO or HMO. And what happened in this case is the amount of money that cost monthly it increased. And I don't remember what the percentage was. Do you remember what the percentage is?
The original percentages?
Yeah,
The original
what
percentages.
what we got hit with as an increase.
It was like
Do you remember that?
13% or something.
It was a little over 13%, I thought, in the
Yeah.
beginning.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was significant. And what they did was they worked together to find ways to make changes in the plan so that percentage wouldn't hit as high. And that's the committee. That was the committee work.
So if we're doing things like this, are we going in the budget and looking for ways to alleviate this impact?
Yes,
Yes,
I would say that, yes.
yes, because there will, I mean, no other way to say it, there will be things that we don't do because we have to do this.
Did we put the brakes on the efficiency plan that we had out there that seemed to have some value to the district? Did we stop that, or have we talked, we could maybe have another conversation? I would like to see that resurrected if we stopped it.
Ken is going through line by line by line, literally every single item.
And that's fine, going line by line, that's great. I'm all for that.
So I think we
But
need to,
just
like,
as
in his
I would like to see our
recommendations,
efficiency plan resurrected again, other
deficit,
ways, and be on a continuing basis, not a one-time shot to clean up.
Mr. Brown, that's something that we can put on
Sure,
a committee of the whole.
absolutely.
We continue to get way off task here, and we need to say, are we going to approve this insurance committee recommendation or not?
No, I
So
don't think we're off task. We need clarity before a vote.
but I think when we talk
That's
about the
the word.
efficiency plan, though, we need to talk about that in the committee of the whole meeting. Any other questions on the insurance committee recommendation?
Do you want to take the vote while Nelson's gone?
Waiting. We have to wait for our member to come back. Isn't she something? Okay. Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Teray,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Nay.
Mr. Brown,
Nay.
Mr. Albrecht,
Insurance committee recommendation.
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo,
Aye.
and Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. District Affairs. Can I get a motion to approve the hiring of investigative agency specializing in residency investigations?
Moved.
Second.
Okay. Dr. Clark.
Thank you. As discussed, what we are looking at doing is hiring this investigation services to review all of our families to ensure that we have residents of Crete Monee attending Crete Monee schools. In doing so, that would mean looking into doing some checks to make sure that they are indeed living in the Crete Monee area. And the registration department, my department, will be working with the investigator to make this as seamless and less intrusive as possible.
And how will this be carried out?
What we have recently done, I have the registration department working on all of our families at this time to determine who are actual residents with current homeowners, and also we categorize the rest as pretty much as an other. So if you're not a homeowner, you fall into renters, leases, your McKinney-Vento, your unknowns, you're doubled up, you're coming from other areas. Like we have a few families that are from a different country that are here. So just checking to make sure that all of that is in place properly.
We are not targeting any particular population. This is going to be across the board.
It's going to be all of our families. It's going to be across the board.
The first year. And then
Yes.
after that, we're just going to
New
concentrate
families.
on new families.
Correct.
Questions?
How much is this contract for?
We looked at the minimum base, and help me out with this, Mr. Surma, $5, but it can also increase depending on the how far we would have to go. So let's say, for instance, we find a family that has fraudulent residency. We inform the family moves. If the family decides that, no, I really do live here and we have to go further, it could cost us a little bit more. So it is going to be on a case-by-case basis, but it should not run us any more than, and this is just a guess for me, we're going to be under 20,000.
Okay, now, financial impact on this says an additional $10,000 has been budgeted.
Correct. And that is just to give us a little cushion in case we have to go to court.
Okay, but you just said 20.
I said, I don't think it's going to cost us any more. I'm just giving you a big number.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to cost us a lot at all. I think families are going to say, you're right, and leave. I don't think we're going to be anywhere close to that number.
Okay, so is the 10,000 the initial?
Yes.
That's not how it's conveyed here. I mean, this is an open contract in some manner, and it's just kind of all over the place. And you know, initially they talked about charging $60 an hour, half-hour increments, but once we get, I'm speaking as the proposed vendor here, once we get information on a person that we want to go after, we going to do this. We don't even know the scope, other than looking at some data first. Do they go out to the people's homes?
They can go out to the
Can they go in the home?
We are not going to know that until they bring that information back to us. We, as the people here in this district, like myself, I can go out to the homes.
Can you go in the home?
I personally will not go into the home.
Can you go in the home?
I can find out. That I don't know for sure.
School district personnel could
They
request
can
to go
request.
in the home.
The
That is
homeowners do not have to, and by the homeowner not being allowed to go in the home, the district have the right to keep that child out of school. Is that correct?
No, we did not say
Not
we were
anymore.
keeping them out of school.
I'm sorry.
We did not say we would keep them out of
Do
school.
you have the right?
Until we prove and we go through the process, we do not have that right.
The district is no longer, there was a change in the law. The district is no longer the final word. The final word comes from the RO.
Yeah.
Has to be due process.
Yes.
And for clarity, Mr. Brown, you just said, once we identify a student, how are we going to go after? We are not identifying them, the company is. They're
Well,
going to
they
look
work
at
for-
everything.
They work for us.
Right, but
So we
I
have
just
our
want
name on it.
clarity that we are not giving them a list of names. They are looking at everybody across the board, every family, so.
Understand. Okay, so I'm just looking at the contract. This is a vague, you know, when you get into time and material, so to speak, contract, you don't know the bottom line. You say $10,000. At what point does a 10,000 stop and you come back to the board? Can that happen? Can that $10,000 happen in the first month, first 2 months? We don't know.
There is a per student fee, correct?
Yes, and that's what I started off with. We're going to know exactly what the cost is going to be because it's going to be based on the individual student cases. So as these things are being found, they're going to relay this information to me. We're not just going to say, hey, go out there and just do whatever you want to do. We want to be kept up. We want to know exactly what you're doing, the steps that you have to take, who it is going to affect, what the process is going to be, what is our role. We're going to be involved in this all the way. It's not just going to be solely on them. Because like you said, we are going to be tied to this.
Yeah, I would hope so. There's other districts that's a lot smaller than ours have expended over $75,000 for a process. Okay,
But-
what it's going to take, again, this to me doesn't appear to be a seal-tight contract. And our board policy states that if we invoke upon a contract or partner with a contract in some way, shape, or form with a certain amount of number, we ought to solicit 3 vendors. So, and that number of $5,000 to $24,999, that sounds like where we at right here. Why do we have only 1 vendor?
If the board would like for me.
That's not the board, that's a policy.
policy.
And that's
Well-
a state law.
I understand. What we looked at was the person that I looked at and met with, I felt was a really good way to go because it's not a guarantee that it's going to cost us any more than what is stated here. It can be less than $1,000. It can be up to 5. It is going to be on a case by case. So without knowing what that number is Until we get to that number, like I said, since it's on a case by case, it really isn't that amount of money to really warrant 2 or 3 parties to view.
But this says the bet, you know that it's at least 10,000, right?
This
That's
is what
this financial says.
we're allowing. We don't believe it's going to be this amount of money.
What's the per pupil cost?
$11,441.
Per student.
$5 per student.
Oh, I'm sorry.
$5
And we're doing all
per family.
students.
Is it per student
I'm
or
sorry,
per family?
Per family.
Per family.
So
No,
how
but
many
that's,
families do we
that's
have?
only initial, but if you look, they said now it can take up to X amount of days, it's $60 an hour with increments of a half hour. So that exceed the $5 per student. So that's additional. It's like additional investigation. Now I'm investigating. It'll take me 3 to 5 days to do it per student, and we will keep you abreast of what's going on.
But we're not saying it is per student. We're saying we want you to know what it could be.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so
This,
I have a little problem with this because we've never done business this way. Only under the contingency funds of construction have we done that, where we've just allocated some money just in case. I have a problem with the fact that this is not a real contract. This is not a contract that says X amount of dollars. We're used to seeing contracts, invoice, whatever you want to call it. This whole, it could be, and maybe, and to be honest, I think it's a waste of money.
Well, it still is a
In my
contract. It's just
opinion.
not a valid, it's not a good
No,
contract for
I'm
the
just
district.
saying, it's not in the format we're used to getting, where it's outlined how much. I've seen this board turn away contracts because it's not specific. And it's not telling us exactly how much something will cost. We've sent administrators back to go get costs.
Have our lawyer
So
looked
that's
at,
part of the
have our
problem.
counsel looked at this?
I'm sorry, I can't hear both of you.
That's okay. So that's part of the issue with me. And then I agree with Mr. Brown, we have to follow board policy, which states that this should be going out for a bid. That was put into policy a couple of years ago. But I would just feel more comfortable if we knew exactly how much this was going to cost. I feel like you guys should have come in here with some type of estimation of how much it would cost. If we know there's a per family cost, we should have found out how many families we have in our district and brought that information to the school board. We can at least know what that base cost is going to be. They could have also, they want to give us all these recommendations from other districts. Show us how much it costs other districts. How much did it end up costing another district? What did they end up having to do? So I just think this is unfinished, and then it's against our policy to do it this way. I don't know if the board president is aware of that, but
this contract is like our contract with our attorneys, I believe. We get paid, they get paid by what they do.
Attorney is a whole different.
No,
it's
a
a whole different profession.
This is a specialized service.
This is a service just like our attorneys provide, and when they go to court and they write extra papers and all that stuff, they charge us more money. It is not a flat fee, and it can't be a flat fee because we don't know. There's variables out here. We don't know how many people are going to have to be investigated. When we talked about this earlier, the firm said, on average, they found 10% of the people, the kids in the school districts that they work with, were not valid residents of the district. That's 400 kids times $11,000. That's $4 million, right? If I can do the math anymore, that's a lot of money that they've saved other districts, and just by having this program in place and checking that residency and doing it properly. I wish everyone were honest. I wish everyone was a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. We wouldn't need any of this, but I think we need this to verify that we're not spending $4 million or $2 million if it's half of that of taxpayer money on people that shouldn't be educated in this district. And we're talking about deficits, and we don't want to look at these kids, and we don't want to look at these families and make sure that they're legit, and that, you know, if they are, God bless them, we provide every service that the law allows. If they're not legit, they don't belong here. That's the bottom line here, and I don't know how you can write a contract and say it's gonna cost X dollars when you don't know how many of these investigations you're gonna have to do. I just don't, I think it parallels our attorney contract. It's the same kind of concept here. We don't know. We know what they charge by the hour, but we don't know how many hours they're gonna work. We have no idea. This gives us how much they're gonna charge by the hour. It's the same type of contract, and we've entered into a contract with them, and we don't have a $125,000 a year set fee or anything like that.
We don't even have a contract.
We don't have a contract with attorneys.
Well, we have a
Because it's not the same thing.
we have hired this firm to do our work. Is that correct?
We don't have a contract because it's not the same thing.
This is not a contract either. This
And we
is an
can see
agreement.
how it's defined by
This
the
is an
school
agreement
code.
to do this work.
I think, President, that
Well-
we at least need to maybe clarify, and I'm all for people that should not be in our district, should not be in our district, plain and simple. That's just a fact. And it's not a dollar for dollar that if we allow one kid or we find one kid, we get a catch, that we're gonna get $11,000 back. That's not how it goes. But here, just from a business point of view, from a board policy point of view, let's do the right thing. Let's make sure we got a contract, make sure it's clean and it's crisp, and it's to our advantage of the contract. But right now, I've been around a lot of contracts, and this one is not tight.
Okay, well, we have an obligation also to be fiscally responsible.
Absolutely.
And
I agree.
we had recently to add 3 new sections to Crete Elementary at the cost of approximately $50,000 per classroom. We just heard from Ms. Crisos, the overcrowding at the middle school. If we have indeed potential for some of these students should not be in the district because they have registered erroneously, then I think that we need to move forward and we need to take proper steps to hire somebody to get this taken care of.
I'm
And I
in
think we
total
need to do it
agreement.
as
I'm
soon
in
as
total
possible.
agreement. I don't have a problem
And I
with
don't
that.
think that we're going to be able to get a contract that says we're going to do all of this for flat fee, $10,000, $20,000, $25,000. I think we waited long enough. I think we need to move forward.
Okay, so have we consulted our law firm on this, our counsel?
Bill, would you like to make a comment? Okay. Has not looked at it?
No, we
What?
didn't, go ahead.
So Eric did not look at it either?
No, we just discussed this at our committee of the whole. There was nothing, no, these type of questions didn't come up at the time.
Mr.
I have
Sarma,
major
this-
reservations with this. This is,
Mr.
first of all, it's not following policy. And second of all, the way it's being brought, it shouldn't be brought this way. My last couple of questions to the superintendent and Dr. Clark. Do we have a residency problem? And also, Mr. Teray said that we'd recuperate some money. What money is that we'd be getting regarding that?
So I can answer the question in terms of a residency problem. We do have many families that we have been registering that cannot provide documentation to show that they live in this district.
Are they coming from Chicago?
They're coming from all over, to be honest
Are they
with you.
coming from Chicago?
We have some from Chicago, yes.
That's been validated and,
Yes, we have the documentation.
okay, that's all. I'm just asking a question.
And when you say they can't provide what?
If you, for instance, come in and you register under the Homeless Act, you really don't have to provide anything. And the law says we have to enroll you immediately. We have a lot that are doing their affidavits that state, oh yeah, I'm living with a cousin, an aunt, a friend, and as long as they're living in the Crete-Monee boundary, we have to enroll those students as well. And we do have families that will just say, I don't have anything.
Okay, so your first two, which homeless, can't count those. They say they're homeless, we know the law. Hopefully, we know it now. Second, I'm living with a family. Okay, what's illegal about that?
Because it's not always the truth.
How do we know that?
Because when you give us the documentation of where you live, the lease or the renter agreement says that you're renting from, and I'm gonna make this number up, but I'm not exaggerating the timeline, January 1, 2017 to January 1, 2020 or 2025. We even had one that was a 20-year agreement. Those things just don't happen in my over 20 years of experience in education. And I've been working with residency now for the past 8 years. Those things just don't happen.
Okay, so obviously there are some questions that need to be answered. I'm willing to ask the attorney to look at this, and we have a meeting next Tuesday. We can come back next Tuesday and make our final decision on this.
I do have one
Questions?
thing that bothers me with this. None of the references are current.
No.
I would like to see current references. And we've been through this in other things. I can't think immediately which one, but we had references that I brought up. I mean, none of these are current. There's one that has a newsletter that posts that they're going to use them, but they're 2015, 2013, 2010. I would like to see current references, please, on anybody.
That's fine, I can do that. He also emailed us a current list. He wanted the superintendent to speak with those people personally.
And just FYI, there is one reference on there. It's an Armand Gasparo. That's no relation to me. I have no idea who that is.
I do believe you guys can do an estimate as to how much this could potentially cost us, based off of the information that you know, based off of going back to this company and getting some information about how much other districts were charged in the end. Also, my question was not answered about how much money, where are we getting money back from? How are we getting money from these students not being in the district?
You don't get money from the students not being here. The way that you'd have to explain it is your dollar would be going further because you're not spending for others. You don't clear. There is no additional money.
Even though some of these students could be low income and we get money based off of that as well. And that's also considered in the equitable school funding formula. I'm just gonna put that out there. My last question, so Jennifer, you said bringing it back on Tuesday and having a lawyer look at it. So me and Mr. Brown have both gone on record as stating if we do not bid out for this is against board policy. So as the president, are you
We
saying
will look
you
at
will
all of
go
that.
against policy?
No, I'm saying we will look at it and bring it back
We'll
next
look at
Tuesday.
it. I
if
don't
it's
believe it is.
appropriate.
I think if you read the board policy, what the board policy does say is between those dollar amounts, and there are exemptions to that based on the Illinois procurement law, and I believe being a specialized service, this fits one of those exemptions. But that's what's in your, I just read your board policies, and that's what I just said is in your board policies. It says that,
That amount that he's talking
according to that amount, there are exceptions that you do not have to get to 3 bids if it is one of the exemptions according to the Illinois procurement law.
And you said this is special ed?
This is a specialized service is what it is.
Oh, I thought you said
No,
special
not special,
education.
specialized service.
Okay, I'll review.
But we'll take a
policy
look at
again.
that. We'll take a
Yep.
look at that with the lawyer.
I knew it was a specialized service, so. Okay, can I get a motion to table this item?
There is a motion currently on the floor.
So we need to rescind the initial motion? Yeah. Can I get a motion to table?
Move.
Actually, I believe the correct wording is postpone.
Our attorney just said table it.
Table? Table means the same meeting, correct? So not the same meeting, we're postponing it to the next meeting.
No, we're tabling it.
You're a heck of a lawyer, and I do not want to challenge you.
So I have a motion to
confused
table
'cause
by
that's
Mr.
not
Brown. Do
correct.
I have a second?
I second.
You
Oh, I
motioned
moved
it.
I motion table and put postpone.
I
all
will
over
second
for
it. And roll call?
Mr. Albrecht?
Just to be clear, I'm voting to table. Correct.
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mrs. Root? Aye. Mr. Teray?
Nay.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Human Resources, can I get a motion to approve the employment of certified staff, the reinstatement of certified staff, the leave of absence for certified staff, the return from leave of absence for certified staff, the intent to retire from certified staff, the resignation of certified staff, the dismissal of certified staff, the employment of educational support staff, the reassignment of educational support staff, the leave of absence for educational support staff, the return from leave of absence of educational support staff, the intent to retire of educational support staff, the resignation of educational support staff, and the dismissal of educational support staff.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Neal.
Okay, the personnel report reads as follows. For certified staff employment, we have Salvador Aguilar, Daniel Berner, Tammy Eaker, Jason Fisher, Valerie Hudson, Jeffrey Jacobs, Tiffany Kellum, Tina Kennebrew, Gerald Kissel, Garrett and Mitchell, Camille Ufford, Casey Stilmasic, and Ted Trully. Certified staff leave of absence, we have Brandon Birmingham, Christine Conlon, Colleen Schofield, Renee Taylor, and Robert Welch. For certified staff return from leave of absence, Ashley Navas, Beth Pisarchik, and Betty Wolf. Certified staff reassignment, Amy Mayer. Certified staff resignation, Patrick Jones and Dina Savas. Educational support staff employment, Jean Cahan, Amber Calleros, Shernette Harris, Ryan Jones, Rose Ringenberg, Christina Serlak, Marina Stewart, Tasha Stone, Tara Taylor, Sarah Tedeschi, Jennifer Torres, and Eve Word. Educational support staff leave of absence, Dessa Covington, Richard Ray, Erica Rosenfeld. Educational support staff resignation, Sonia Allen Jones, Erica Murray, and Philip Puente. And educational support staff dismissal, Maverick Perry. And that ends the personnel report.
Thank you. Questions?
Without mentioning any names, a person that was dismissed and unable to perform function, was that due to illness or what? Without revealing what you cannot reveal, is there anything you can reveal?
Unfortunately, all I can say is he was unable to perform the material functions of the position. I can't really get into the reasons why in public.
What's
session.
written right here, that's all you can say. Yeah. Okay. Is that under a grievance in some capacity, or is that still too much more you can?
To my knowledge, there has been no response from the employee.
There has been information in the FYIs about this.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Root? Aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Old business?
I guess I have some old business regarding the life safety issues. We talked a little bit about it. And just what are we doing with the old sixth grade center? We got a lot of life safety issues that it seems as if we haven't had and paid much attention to those. I think we need to resurrect those life safety issues, talk about it. I think we only have a couple years as opposed to the plan that we presented to the regional superintendent when we are to complete those. So maybe we can get it on our next committee as a whole meeting to talk about it and try to see what course of action is needed to move that stuff forward.
Currently, I have Mr. Serma and Mr. McLean working through that list to make sure that they have a plan and an idea. I don't know that they would be ready by October of Committee of the Whole. If they are, I'll be glad to put it on. But
We
we will
talked about
start
that.
getting you updates in your hand concerning that, because they're, I got two new folks that are different than the folks who actually built it, who are trying to wrap their hands around exactly what we have going on.
Okay, but you can at least look at some items and see if we can do some items in-house.
Yes, sir.
I haven't
Yes, sir.
visited.
We can definitely talk
Yeah,
about
we
that.
can do that and
Yes.
start chopping away at it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brown, the question comes up with the life safety issues is that if the facility is not going to be used for defined as a school,
We do
those
not have to
issues
do.
do not have to do it.
That's
So-
correct. So I'm talking about relative to the big ticket items that we have. I'm not talking about the sixth grade
Okay,
center, because
all right.
we're pretty much,
Okay.
at least from a life safety point of view, but I'm just talking about the other bad performers as it relates to the structure and the
Okay.
facilities with Crete, Monee, not Crete, but Crete Elementary and
Okay.
Balmoral are
Okay.
two bad so-called
Sure.
bad grades, so to
Sure.
speak. But
Okay.
start chopping away. And at least, we can do our due diligence
Sure.
until we really can get finance or whatever we decide to do with those
Okay.
buildings. So we just kind of up in the air.
All righty.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ken.
I have a couple of old or new, whatever. I did inquire about the issue with the leggings in the student handbook. I did see the response that was sent. However, unless I wasn't looking thoroughly enough, I saw examples given, but I did not see any specific infractions where students were written up. So are these just in talking to someone, or where do we get these examples from?
I got the examples from the administrators. And what I said was basically when those infractions occur, they do meet with the students and speak with them. They do ask them to change. And they, in some cases, if they have to, they will call parents and have parents and bring clothing. They do not discipline. They utilize it as a teachable moment.
So we don't document that?
If it's a teachable moment for them, I'm not sure that they would need to document.
Well, I feel like if it's that big of an issue, why don't we have documentation on that? If you have to call a parent to come and bring clothes, we don't document that? Contact with parents?
Yeah, you would contact, you can document that you contacted a parent, but for the most case, if they're being compliant, what you're doing is writing a referral that you don't need to write, because that's how they document.
Are we keeping
No,
track of
I'm
it
not
some other
talking about a
way?
referral.
I'm
I'm talking
sorry.
a parent contact.
Yes, parent contacts are documented, but I can't say in every time that they call them for them to change clothes that they document that I called your parent and have you to change clothes in every single incident. I would have to ask the building administrators.
So my issue, again, like I shared, is that are we really nitpicking with what our children are wearing?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we, I think that our kids already have a lot to worry about when they come to school. I've walked the halls and I've seen tight shirts. Are we now regulating that? I've seen certain things that don't seem to be regulated, but for whatever reason, for leggings, which seems to be the thing that girls want to wear now, we want to nitpick. They did it at the middle school, and now whatever, we're seeing it even in this. I just don't really understand the need to specify that a shirt has to be a certain length when our girls are wearing leggings. And I don't feel like we've been provided with substantial evidence of that.
So I hear what you're saying, and I'm trying to word this as appropriately as I can. But we are trying to teach our young ladies how to be young ladies. And so if you have on leggings that are see-through, showing all of your personal
You should get called
business,
into the office and a parent should be
That is
called. But why
correct.
does that mean we have to now put in a certain rule about leggings because you got the same thing that would happen with a shirt? I
which
don't
I hear
understand that.
you, but this is not a rule that has just been implemented just for this school year. This has
Oh,
been a
I know
rule that's
that.
been there for a while. So.
And I've had a problem with it for a while. So, and I shared it with the superintendent a year ago.
You're not a student.
Well, and I'm going to go back and say, I'm going to add
I
some
just
other
think
things
we're,
to
we're,
this.
we're policing too much, in my opinion. I think that you can always have some issues with clothing. I think if your body parts are not showing,
Well, I can't say that your body parts aren't showing if I'm able to determine the type of underwear that you have on or
right,
notice
and
that
that's
you
what I
don't
said.
have
You
any.
pull them just like you would do if it was a shirt.
I agree,
You
but I
pull 'em
also
in
want to
and change
support our administrative staff when they say this is a concern, that this is a problem. They're there all the time. They see it, they address it, and I think we should continue to support that.
Well, I go on record again as stating that I think it's cultural. I think it has something to do with even not just culture, but girls that tend to be bigger in body stature. And we're trying to restrict these girls. Some of them already have body image issues, but to now start nitpicking, in my opinion, it's just not worth it.
I hear you.
I don't know if we should go over the answer that you received, because when I read the answer, I think that made a little more clarity to me.
I was trying not to because.
But it's
Oh,
the
I'm
same.
sorry.
It's
There-
the
okay.
same thing with any other, like a shirt. It's the same thing.
I
I've been
think-
in the high school where I've seen a shoulder. I saw a shoulder off the first day of school, and the girl was just walking down the hallway. So to me, it's the same thing. We're just nitpicking with leggings. And when I've had conversations with certain people, people just don't like leggings. They don't like girls wearing leggings, is what I get back.
That's not what I got from administrators when we reviewed.
I'm not saying what you got back. I'm telling you what I got back. I've never heard, oh, they're see-through or whatever. To me, that's the same as a shirt.
So would a solution be just saying clothing that is see-through, or, I mean, taking the word leggings
Basically,
out?
all
and-
we're trying to do is have the young ladies to cover themselves.
Oh, no, I understand what you're doing, and I thought your explanation was great, and it did give me a lot of clarity. I'm just wondering if it's just the wording that's the issue, if we just say clothing in general that you could see
Instead
through,
of
or
saying
that
leggings.
reveals too much, or, and not just
Which
say
I'm open
leggings.
to. I just want us to have these discussions and keeping in mind who is having to regulate these things. And so I'm looking to my administrative staff who deals with this on a regular basis. I don't think that they're nitpicking. I don't think they're going after girls because of size or anything like that. I'm a big girl myself. I wear leggings, but I also wear things to cover up certain areas on my body. That's not, we're just trying to teach them what appropriate looks like. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
I don't think I'm hearing the whole board go
But
across.
we're picking and choosing. Because if you're gonna wear a tight shirt, are you saying wear a sweater to cover it?
I'm
Because
saying-
I've seen all of that.
I'm saying we should be listening to our administrative staff and we should be working together. If the wording is not what we want it to be, then let's work together to get what we need and keeping in mind what we're doing as a unit. That's what I'm saying. We work together to come up with this information. They didn't feel a need to change it. I didn't feel a need to change it. Once again, I'm listening to the people who are dealing with this every day. If we want to look at language, then let's talk about that. But it doesn't mean that we need to remove it. It just may need that we may need to just say it differently. But the goal here, young ladies, we need for you to be covered up in every aspect. Young men, we need you to be covered up in every aspect. That's what we're saying.
So did that conversation include any students? Were they involved in the conversation?
No, we only worked with administrators at this point in time.
I'm going to put my 2 cents in. I think it's distracting. I think it's inappropriate. I think the real world, they're gonna dress for success, and I don't think they're gonna be allowed to wear this kind of clothing. there isn't too many 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old males out there that, with natural hormones that are not distracted by this. I think it's just common sense to just cover that stuff up. And same with the boys. If they start wearing leggings and they're walking around with you know, other things showing, you know, where are we going to go with it? You know, it's going to be distracting when you see something that's, you know, my God, what is that? You know. So, you know, that's my opinion. I don't think you're going overboard. If it were up to me, they'd all be wearing uniforms. That it solved the problem. All this clothes issue would be solved. No problem. Just put them in a uniform and they can all focus on education and not what Susie and Tommy and Joey's wearing. That's my opinion.
Is
Okay,
there,
Go ahead.
would you say that this subject comes up more in the middle school and the high school, or is it across the board?
Actually, I couldn't really say it would be across the board. I know they do have issues both at the middle school and the high school because I reached out to them.
Okay, so why don't we invite Ms. Krisos and Ms. Dresch to come into one of our committee of the whole meetings and we can talk about this.
Of course, I'll do that.
I would like to say that I don't see an issue with leggings most of the time. I'm also a big woman. I'm very careful how I dress, but I am appalled at what I see in different areas of the body being exposed, not just shoulders, but we do really need to look at this wording when it comes to dress, because if we're going to teach our young ladies to be young ladies, we need to do it top to bottom. And I don't feel that we're addressing top to bottom. So my personal opinion is, let's look at the wording, let's talk with our administrators, let's talk with some of the students. I know the styles are different for younger people than they are for as we go in different ages, but there are days when I walk into a school and I'm stopped by my breath being taken away by what I see. And I don't think that they get the clue that it might be offensive to somebody or it's not how you grow up. So I do think that this whole thing needs to be looked at, young ladies, young men, the entire deal.
I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
And you know, I'll just add this, in talking with some of the students, some wear leggings because the jeans are not for disproportionate people. So it's more comfortable for them to wear that. If they get a jean and they're, you know, bigger in the bottom, it's tighter, so then it's hanging down and they're trying to pull it up because they don't make jeans, you know, that flexible or whatever. So some of them wear it because of that reason. So I think we do need to have the conversations with the students as well and maybe set an expectation where this is what we expect. And if it comes, just like with any other clothing piece, if there's an issue, you're going to be asked, your parent is going to be called, and you're going to have to change it. So I agree. I think it needs to be a further conversation about it. And I know you guys, with Dr. Harden, didn't you visit a school, was it Stevenson High School, where they had, you went to, Janine?
Yes, ma'am.
Where they had taken away a lot of the, what they can't do because they felt like.
There was a significant amount that they just took out of the book. And, you know, that's where I was going before it went back and forth, is I hear the board saying basically all the same thing. They said, what I heard from you and from others is deal with what you see. None of you want any of our young ladies or young men to be dressed inappropriately or showing things they're not supposed to be showing. That was clear. And I guess what I heard from you is we're attacking leggings when we need to be focused on making sure that
Body parts showing.
My only addition to that comment, though, is I'm 1,000% behind you, except for the fact that, again, it becomes this judgmental. This principal or this administrator doesn't think it's a problem. This one does, this one doesn't. So we need to find a way to make this work, because if we make it on what you think is okay and I think is okay, but not what she thinks is okay, I think we're going to run into a bigger issue. We're going to spend more time arguing. We're going to have more upset parents, more upset students, and there goes our educational environment.
Right, and that's kind of why Stevenson tried to walk away from it, because what you have is first and second hour thought it was just fine. Go to your fourth hour teacher, and she's lost her mind about this because it wasn't descriptive enough. And it's. I mean, when we were having the discussion,
I
I'll
was
just
very
leave it at that. Just leave it
descriptive.
alone. Yeah.
But just so you know, all administrators were, all building principals were at the table to review this. And basically everyone said the same thing. I believe it's page 11, don't quote me. But there's a few things that's outlined there, and it's not just leggings. It does make reference to tops. But I do hear what the board is saying. I have no problems with reviewing this.
Okay, let's do that at a later date.
My last one was, Mr. Teray sent an email requesting information regarding fee waivers. He's not in here. Oh, there he is. Just so we get an understanding on fee waivers, and Ken, I think your response was really good. There's, provisions put in place by the state of Illinois for students that are considered low income via free and reduced lunch status. And so they qualify for fee waivers, correct? Also, we do receive certain levels of reimbursement monies for our free and reduced lunch population. Is that correct?
That is very correct when you start looking at the new SB 1947. And we got some before.
And even right before that. So those numbers actually are very important. And identifying families that need additional help or whatever, that's what we should be doing as a school district. I just wanted clarity on that. The last I saw, you said 60 something, but last I saw we were like 73% free and reduced lunch. So that's a big chunk of our district that are free and reduced lunch families.
Right.
How often do we get those numbers?
You usually get them yearly, but they don't become official till October something.
October is when they really become
Okay.
official, yes.
Right. And I think our number, I've been seeing nearly 70% whenever I'm talking to people, because I think the last number that I saw officially was 69%.
Okay.
The understanding, there are a lot of school districts that have athletic fees. You just have athletic fees, and that's what everybody pays. But when you're a district like ours, where 7 out of 10 of our students on free and reduced lunch, we don't have athletic fees, because then you'd only have 30% of the people paying. And we just have to keep that in mind as we're doing our fee structure. We try to collect everything we can. We try to make sure that we keep district costs in order. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're following the law. So if it is a free and reduced lunch student, they don't have to pay for school fees in any way whatsoever. And there are extracurricular and curricular fees that go along in there. And I think the note that I sent out to the board that Ken sent through us was very descriptive. It helped us all understand what they have to pay for and what they don't.
And actually, some state agencies encourage districts to identify those families, because again, as a school district, we should be in the business of helping our families and not attempting to keep them from receiving the help that they qualify for.
And we do, Dr. Hall, we do have a separate procedure for those families that don't automatically qualify for free and reduced lunch application. So we have a separate procedure that we use, a separate waiver process that we use that families can apply for. In fact, Dr. Clark and I have gotten together and we're reviewing that whole process to make sure that there is also an appeal process that is in there too. So if a decision is made out of my office, they can appeal to somebody also and have that reviewed too.
My question was, part of my question was not answered. I understand the lunch, you get actually more money than the lunch costs. I get that. The feds throw you some money on that and you get the money. The fees, part of it is like every high school student is assessed a fee of $300, and 70% of that $300 at 70% of 1,600 students, you do the math, that's quite a bit of money that we don't get in fees for high school. Say at the middle school, it's $150. At the elementaries, it's $85. 70% of that we're not getting, period. My bigger question was, what are the checks and balances? How often does the state of Illinois or the federal government do income checks on families that sign up? If you sign up in 1927 for this program, are you in this program forever, or are you getting an annual check of your income and you have to go to a state agency and provide that? So there's a check and balance that we know you are on free and reduced lunch, or with the what's the temporary assistance program? TANA, what's the
TANF.
Yeah, yeah, and also the SNAP program with the link card.
Right.
Is there a check and balance on this? That's part of the question I asked, and that's the answer that Dr. Cunningham was unable to provide me, because we don't know what the state does. So we don't know how many people have signed up for this as their child was in first grade and they had a definite need for it, and I'm all for that. Feed that child. Now the child's in seventh grade. They both got a job. They're making good money. Is there a check and balance that now they can afford to pay the fees and they can afford to pay for lunch? Are they doing it? You know, it's not 1955 anymore. Right. And you don't go, you know, the honesty system isn't in there. It's, you know, what can I get from uncle? Okay, you know, and that's the question I have. How diligent is the state? Because I talked to some people and they asked to get off the program. It took 3 years to get off the program. 3 years they put in with the state of Illinois. So, you know, if that's any example of how long it takes to get off, and that was an honest person just going in and saying, I don't need this anymore. Well, you know, how are they checking? Are they doing the routine checks? Is it annually? How's it done? Those are the questions I have, because that's all money.
Yeah,
I guess I would say that I don't know how the state does it and how they regulate that. What I do know is that we are mandated by law that if the state determines someone to have SNAP or TANF benefits, we're required to have them on free meals and
I fully understand
fees
that.
waived. But I can't speak for the state. I don't know that.
But, you know, we got
Dr. Cunningham
800 school districts across this state alone.
Right.
How many of those school districts are diligent about talking to the state, and how many of the superintendents and the business managers are saying, how often are you guys checking this? What's the verification process? How do you get this freebie? You know, that's what I'm asking. You know, there's a ton of money going out here. There's literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in this program across the country.
Right. Well, and again, one of the things I will tell you in my past experience, I had a case where I questioned someone receiving those benefits, and so I had to file a case with the state, one of the state auditors, and it took them 6 months to get back to me. I mean, I'll just tell you. I mean, that's just the way, and there's nothing we can do. But again, we're just mandated by that.
That was you going to the state and saying,
Yeah, when I
have
found
this
out that
case.
someone was receiving benefits that they really shouldn't have been, you know, it wasn't my role to investigate. That's a state issue, so I passed it along, and I made a complaint into the state, and it took them 6 months to get back to me and respond to me. So again, it's just the way the state is, but I don't know if Dr. Cunningham has more information on that.
Well, mine was basically what you said. You know, with TANF and SNAP, once that list is sent to the district, we don't get to question it. We have to do it. You know, and I know you're looking. I went through the regulations on the state sheet and everything else to try to find, and then also went to the government site that they had to try to find how they check. There's nothing listed on
That's right.
their
That's
system on how
exactly
they
what
check.
I found. And then we also have the one they go into the lunchroom and they sign up and they fill out that form. Okay.
If somebody fills out a form for us, it is a yearly form. Every year we check it.
We check 3% annually. 3%.
we audit
We
3%?
audit
Audit
3%. You can ask our,
And you're mandated
Our-
by law, that's all you can audit. You're not
No,
allowed
no,
by
that-
law to audit anymore unless there are some.
I was
exceptions.
told we had two options.
Okay.
You know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You
No, go
correct
ahead.
me. We can do 100% or we can do 3%.
No, that is not correct.
That's not correct.
No.
So
All
all
you
we
can
can
do
do
is
is 3%. And I asked, what do you do for verification? It's an honesty program.
It is.
They sign up, that's it. I need the money, you know.
In fact, the law is specific. If you read the information I sent to you, one of the things the law says is that if we have a separate waiver system, because what free and reduced does, it only really allows you free meals. So if somebody gets free meals through that program and then they apply for a fee waiver, if I find out in that process that their income is more than they put down in the application, I cannot use that as evidence against them. It's very specific in the law that tells you that. So again, our hands are tied by what we're mandated by. That's just the way the regulations are. But when it comes to filling out that application, it is an honesty application. We're not allowed to ask for documentation to back that verification up unless they're part of that 3%.
And do we do the 3% audit every year?
We do the 3% audit every year, yes.
And what kind of results do we get?
Most of the time, we're required to ask them for verification and that, and so they're under a timeline, and so they will bring that verification, whether it's a tax return or W-2 forms and that, to verify that income.
Well, I'll do my best diligence to call the federal government and the state. Hopefully I won't die of old age before I get an answer, but I will try and get an answer on what the verification process is, and I'll enlighten the board on that process.
Well, I can send you that directly from the National School Lunch Program. I have that information. I can share it.
He's talking about the verification for the other stuff we're looking at.
Oh,
for TANF
okay.
and SNAP.
Oh, okay. I have the verification process that I can easily share.
Yeah, well, that'd be nice too.
Sure.
You know, I just, I sense pride is different today than it was before. And I would never do this for my kids. I would suffer for myself before I would do that, but that's just me.
Any other old business?
That's it.
I'm sorry?
That's it for me.
Thank you. New business? Okay. Can I get a motion to go into closed session for litigation pending and involving the public body, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, and student discipline cases?
Moved.
I'll
Second.
Okay, Nelson. This is Hmm?
Call the roll. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Roop?
Aye.
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. We're in closed.
Of any action after this, we are going to have a discussion. Get any additional information, but if you'd love to wait, we'll see you when we're done. Thank you.